Chapter 122. I'm just a killer. When someone needs me to kill someone, I'll do it. I'll be a killer's hand. Jun Wooey was about to rush forward when a hand rested on his shoulder. The owner of the hand was Jun Moxie. Third uncle, I'm really curious. You're a valiant general on the battlefield, an expert in battle. How could you do such a thing? Jun Moxie smiled. Jun Wooey didn't understand. You're talking to them about the law. Is that useful? If they cared about the law, they wouldn't kill people in public. Didn't you hear them? They're the law. In their eyes, the law was just a tool that they could do without. As for you talking to them about humanity, if they still have a little bit of humanity left, they wouldn't do something as cruel as killing children. Don't you think you're stupid to talk about humanity with an animal? Jun Moxie said flatly. Oh. Then what do you think I should do? Jun Wooey said resolutely. Well, just do what I did. Isn't it a good choice? Jun Moxie's body took a strange step back. His eyes were still looking at Jun Wooey. His expression didn't change. His eyes were still as warm as water. His right hand went straight back. Jun Moxie's 5 fingers went straight into the throat of the burly man. Jun Moxie tightened his grip. Crack! The man's throat was crushed. The burly man was provoked by Jun Wooey's law. He strode forward, wanting to teach this poor man a lesson. Who knew that as soon as he got near, Jun Moxie would use him as a model? For people like this, you either ignore them, or... Jun Moxie pulled out his hand and elegantly wiped the blood off the burly man's body. He didn't look back. He pushed the burly man's body to the ground. Jun Moxie then continued slowly, or, you must eliminate all evils. The burly man's eyes widened in shock. His eyes met the little girl's hateful eyes. Perhaps he didn't think that his death was caused by the little girl's hiring killer. A copper coin with a gap was the price he had to pay for his life. No, he wasn't worth that penny. There were many lives that would disappear because of that penny. Even the girl herself would not have thought that her vengeance would be avenged, nor would she have known that she would be able to hire a peerless god of death with just a single copper coin. But if she knew this in the underworld, she would be smiling in the underworld. The heavens' will was clear. This was because the moment Jun Moxie picked up the little girl's only wealth, her entire wealth, that chipped copper coin, the king of assassins had made a decision in his heart. From now on, the evil monarch would fight to the death with the Hall of Hell and the people behind it. Exterminate them to the last man. Jun Wooey was speechless when he saw Jun Moxie's indifferent expression. Yeah, it's enough to teach them a lesson. Is it necessary to exterminate them to the last man? This kind of person should be dealt with according to the law. That is the right way. Third uncle, although you are upright and just, I have to say that you are too pedantic. The sound of messy footsteps came from behind. Jun Moxie didn't turn his head and said, why don't you try to reason with them? See if you can persuade them. Even if you reveal your identity and order the officials to punish them, what can they do? I can guarantee that they will be released as soon as they turn around. Then, the scene today will continue. It's really funny. The remaining burly men at the door saw their companions die tragically. They roared and rushed forward. Third uncle, actually, we martial artists have to remember one thing. Jun Moxie laughed lightly. His face was calm after changing his appearance, but his eyes were as deep as water, with a faint glint in them. He ignored the man who was rushing towards him from behind. It seems that since they can be so unscrupulous, then the laws of Tianxiang Kingdom can no longer bind these people. When the law becomes an umbrella for evil, when the higher-ups use evil to achieve their own goals, when the evil people are arrogant, but no one can punish them properly, this is the time when people like us will inevitably appear. Remember, at this time, the justice in our hearts cannot be restricted by the law. It will become a sharp blade that kills. Kill to stop killing, use violence to control violence, and ruthlessly eliminate these scum of the world. This is justice. There is no need to worry about the heavenly laws and reincarnation. Those are nothing more than dog's fart. Regarding this, I can only kill. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. He was still facing Jun Wui, and his back was still facing the burly men behind him. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, and his expression was tranquil. But in an instant, he suddenly turned around and rushed into the group of burly men like lightning. With a few kacha-kacha sounds, he instantly passed through them. Jun Moxie's tall figure did not even turn his head as he leisurely stepped into the hall of Huanghua. His movements were calm and confident, as if he had come to visit a friend. Behind him, one of the burly men was holding a saber in his hand. His throat had turned into a big bloody hole. Another man's chest was clearly caved in, and the third man's crotch was bleeding profusely. The last man's neck had been twisted, and his head hung limply. All dead. Until Jun Moxie's figure disappeared from the hall of Huanghua, the 4 corpses fell one after another. These men's skills were only that of ordinary people, and their Xian Qi was at most 2nd or 3rd level. But, Jun Wui could clearly see that Jun Moxie had only used one move to kill each of them. No. It should be said that it was only one move. But, no one could dodge this one move. In fact, they couldn't even react to it. One strike to kill, there was no luck involved. What a terrible killing technique. What if he could avoid it? Jun Wui pondered for a moment. It wouldn't have been difficult for me to dodge it if I had been on full alert. But, Mo Xie's killer move was enough to kill an ordinary silver-level Xian Qi expert in a fair fight. As for a higher-level expert, Jun Wui suddenly came to his senses. His nephew had already rushed in. So, he couldn't run into any danger. This Hall of Huanghua had dared to be so brazen. So, there must be some hidden experts inside. So, he hastily followed behind Jun Moxie, and rushed into the Hall of Huanghua. Jun Wui was shocked as he looked around. 5 or 6 corpses had been lying in disorder since he had entered the Hall of Huanghua's entrance. And, the injuries on each of these corpses were the same. Their throats had been smashed, and their bones had been crushed. Jun Wui rushed in like a whirlwind. And, he finally saw Jun Moxie's figure entering and exiting the rooms in a calm and fast manner. And, he was cruel and elegant at the same time. Jun Moxie didn't let go of any of the people who had rushed out of the room. It didn't matter if they were men or women. There were enemies in front of him. But, there wasn't a single living person behind him, except for Jun Wui. Not a single one. Jun Wui was undoubtedly worrying too much. The Hall of Huanghua might have the support of a very strong force behind it. But, this place was only a branch of this organization. So, it was only responsible for buying and selling goods. So, there weren't many experts here. Moreover, Jun Moxie's attacks were sharp and ruthless to the extreme. The guards who had come out of the Hall of Huanghua fell down immediately. And, the madams and prostitutes didn't know any martial arts. But, Jun Moxie didn't show any mercy. So, none of them survived. Jun Wui was an expert who had already reached the realm of Tianxian. But, he didn't get the opportunity to attack. He acted as a bodyguard. Moreover, he acted as a very incompetent bodyguard. And, he acted as a follower and a spectator. Jun Mo Xie's expression remained calm throughout. He moved like the wind, and with a ka sound, he broke the throat of another guard. Then, he raised his leg again, and changed the angle of his attack. His leg struck the crotch of another guard on the right, and that guard screamed miserably as blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and he collapsed to the ground. Along the way, there was blood and corpses. Boom! 3 silhouettes burst through the inner courtyard's door. They stood at the entrance. Who are you people? How dare you come here to cause trouble? Do you know where this place is? It was a middle-aged man in his 40s. Come here to cause trouble. I didn't. I was just entrusted by someone to kill people. Why would I cause trouble? Jun Moxie said with a smile. While he was talking, he didn't relax his foot. The remaining 3 people in front of him fell down in 3 different directions. Along the way, he didn't let any of them go. There were already 40 to 50 corpses lying on the ground. How dare you? Who entrusted you to do this? The middle-aged man was obviously trying to be fierce. Do you know where this place is? Who does this place belong to? Jun Moxie couldn't be bothered with him. He turned his head and said, "Third uncle, I'm a little tired. I'll leave these 3 people to you. You can also exercise your muscles. But you have to finish this quickly. This is the capital city after all. There will be soldiers arriving soon." Soldiers? Jun Wui smiled coldly and nodded. Suddenly, he stretched his body and flew forward like a big bird. A pale blue light suddenly flashed. Elegant but cruel. Ah! Tian Xian is strong. The 3 of them cried out in pain. Before they could finish their words, they were already sent flying. Tian Xian was a powerhouse against a few silver-leveled Xian practitioners. It was as easy as crushing dry weeds. He didn't even need to use his strength and it was already over. Jun Wui didn't want to kill indiscriminately. But now, Jun Moxie had deliberately escalated the matter to an unmanageable stage. It was obvious that he wanted to kill them all. Moreover, time was of the essence. Jun Wui had no choice but to take the lead and start sweeping. Besides, the people here weren't innocent. Killing indiscriminately was killing indiscriminately. Although Third Master Jun was still very dissatisfied with Jun Moxie's way of doing things. While Jun Wui was sweeping everywhere, Jun Moxie quickly rushed into a room and searched for a while. Then, bang bang bang, sounds were heard. The hitman threw 2 big boxes into the courtyard. He picked up a knife and cut open the boxes. Suddenly, shining white silver, glistening gold, and banknotes were scattered all over the courtyard. Jun Wui was surprised. He saw that Jun Moxie had already picked up his knife and cut open a few rooms in the corner. He shouted, "Come out. Take the silver and leave quickly. Once you get out, go east." Suddenly, dozens of boys and girls rushed out. When the last sealed door was opened, an indescribable smell assailed their nostrils. Seeing the scene inside, Jun Wui suddenly felt that his previous hesitation and accusations against his nephew were simply condoning and harboring criminals. Chapter 123. In front of Jun Wui's eyes, the lower half of the human body in the jar had already been severely deformed. Below the waist, from the calves to the thighs, it was less than 2 feet. The arms were also deformed. It seemed that they had been in the jar for a long time. Only their heads were exposed to eat, drink, and even defecate inside. Only the eyes of these people were still flickering. They were still looking at the 2 of them pitifully, but they couldn't make any sound. Upon a closer look, it turned out that their tongues had been cut off. This is a human swine. These people raise children who have no aptitude and no future in this place. Then, they wait for their bodies to slowly deform and distort. Then, they sell them to the circus at a high price. Then, they use these deformed people to win people's sympathy and make money. Jun Mo Xia only glanced at it once, and then turned his head away. "Third uncle, do you still think that the people here shouldn't be killed? Is it enough to just educate them? Not only do they deserve to be punished, they should be hacked into pieces." Jun Wui blushed with shame and rage. What kind of evil heart would be needed to do such a vicious act? Such scum should have died long ago. First, the homeless children were taken in. Then, some of the better aptitude were trained into killing machines. The more outstanding ones were trained. The boys were trained into prostitutes, the girls were trained into prostitutes. As for the less outstanding ones, they were trained into dog slaves. The remaining ones who couldn't be trained became the deformed ones in front of us. Everyone in this place is participating in this work. Do you think that educating the people here is enough? So, I chose to kill. I killed without hesitation, without mercy. I killed until my heart was filled with joy. Jun Moxie nodded slightly. He looked outside the door. A group of young boys and girls, who were initially timid, finally plucked up the courage to pick up the gold and silver on the ground. One by one, they kowtowed to the two of them and ran out of the door. Third uncle, have you ever thought that among these children, there might be the children of your subordinates who died on the battlefield? Don't be in a hurry to deny it. The weather is unpredictable. It's inevitable that there will be people who lost their parents, have no one to rely on, and have no way to make a living here. When Jun Moxie said this, Jun Wui's eyes instantly turned red. Jun Moxie's words were calm, callous, and almost cold-blooded, but there was no doubt that they were very reasonable. Although it can't be said that places like this can be found everywhere in Tianxiang Kingdom, it is definitely not a small number. It's just that most of them aren't as brazen as they are here. Jun Moxie sighed and raised his eyebrows to look at the sky. From afar, the sound of hoofbeats could be heard. The boys and girls in front can still move freely and have a chance to escape, but what about the people in front of us? Do you have any ideas? As a Tian Xian expert, Jun Wui naturally heard the commotion. But the dozens of deformed children in front of them were a big problem. It was impossible to bring them away, but if they were left here, it would be the same as entering the tiger's den. Good idea. What good idea? The people in front of us have lost their tongues, their ears are pierced, their limbs are deformed, and there is no hope for them to recover. They have already lost all hope in life. To them, survival is already a form of torture, a life worse than death. Jun Moxie sighed. You mean? Jun Wui was shocked. No. Absolutely not. They are already pitiful enough, do we still want to deprive them of their last bit of life? Jun Moxie turned his head. If that's the case, then we should leave quickly. The officials are already here, if we don't leave now, we will have to face them. Since you don't think we should end their painful existence, then let them continue to be pitiful. He paused for a while and said, you let them live like this, for them, is the greatest pain. Alas, forget it, let's see what happens next. We don't have enough time. Let's go. Jun Wui heaved a deep sigh, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Finally, he looked at the bodies in the altar with a complicated look in his eyes. Finally, he made up his mind and followed behind Jun Moxie. The two of them quickly skimmed over the top of the wall, turned left and right, and suddenly disappeared. The two of them had just left when the thunderous sound of hooves stopped at the entrance of the hall of Huang Hua. Then, there was a commotion, and the officers and soldiers rushed in. Xia, your temperament is a bit too cruel and bloodthirsty. You have to control this point carefully. Today's matter was good, but I found that your temperament is a bit too cold. If you encounter something in the future, you have to think carefully, Jun Wui said while walking. Eliminating evil is promoting good. Third uncle, I don't deny that I'm bloodthirsty, but I've never killed a good person. I've never hurt a single one of them. But for those who deserve to be killed, I'll exterminate their entire families. I'll get rid of evil, and I won't leave a single chicken or dog alive. Jun Moxie's complexion was as calm as water. Lengleng smiled, but her footsteps didn't stop. The uncle and nephew pair were quite familiar with the terrain, and their movement techniques were also extremely agile. After passing through a few streets and flipping over a few walls, they arrived at a relatively secluded place. The thunderous sound of hooves behind them had already gradually faded away. You're right, we must get rid of evil. If we encounter such a place again, we'll have to intervene. The existence of such a place in this world is simply unacceptable. Jun Wui frowned deeply. Xia, why did you only kill people, but didn't you capture a living person to ask about the mastermind behind the scenes? If we can find the mastermind behind the scenes and eliminate him, then it will be considered complete. Third uncle, what do you think these shrimps know? It's just a waste of effort to ask them. Even if we can get some clues, we'll have to spend a lot of effort to track them down, and we'll expose ourselves. June Moxie looked at him with interest. Actually, how can the mastermind behind the scenes sit still after such a thing happened? He'll definitely strengthen his guard and wait for us to come to him. He'll also search for us everywhere, or secretly inquire about us. Judging from his reaction afterwards, isn't it more likely that we'll have a chance of success? At that time, we'll be in the dark, and the mastermind behind the scenes will be in the light. No matter what choice we have to make, it'll be much more convenient. There was another thing that June Moxie was too embarrassed to say. If they found out that the mastermind behind the scenes was an important official in the court, or even a member of the royal family, would third uncle really do it? Take this Huang Hua Hall as an example. If the mastermind behind the scenes was really the first prince, would you really eliminate him? You're right. Jun Wui raised his sword-like eyebrows, but now that my body has recovered, I'm determined not to allow such an ugly place to exist in this world. If I know of one, I'll destroy it. Third uncle, I can only tell you that you have a long way to go. Hee, when we go back, third uncle, you should immediately arrange for reliable people to save as many of those who escaped as possible. I'm afraid they won't be able to escape by themselves. Then why did you give them money? Jun Wui was puzzled. It's just so that they can buy something to eat, or go further away if they're quick-witted. June Moxie smiled. In such a situation, we can't help them at all. Whether they can escape or not depends on their own abilities. Therefore, among these people, the further they go, the more secretive they are, the more worthy they are. As for this, it should be third uncle's business. June Moxie was talking when he suddenly stopped. He quietly said, "You've been following us for so long. Isn't it time for you to come out?" Jun Wui was shocked. Is there someone following us? Why didn't I sense it? I've been practicing for many days, and my cultivation level has stabilized at the initial level of Tianxian. It can be said that I'm a real Tianxian master. In that case, what kind of expert would have the ability to follow him without him noticing? And how did Mo Xia discover such a master? Jun Moxie stood still after he finished speaking. His eyes quietly looked at the ground. It was as if there was something attractive on the ground, and he couldn't take his eyes off it. After a long time, a voice was heard, "Haha, not bad." A dark blue light flashed, and a skinny masked man appeared more than 100 feet away. His bright eyes looked at Jun Moxie and Jun Wui. "Can you tell me, how did you discover me?" Jun Moxie Lengleng smiled. "People change. Everyone has their own tricks. There's nothing too rare in this world. Don't think that you're so great. I wonder, what's your purpose in following us?" This man's mask was obviously torn from his clothes. It was very simple, and it was obviously done on the spur of the moment. "I don't have any evil intentions. I just admire the two masters with a sense of justice. I was curious, so I decided to follow you." "Ha, we're all kindred spirits. Since you don't have any evil intentions, please go ahead. We have other important matters to attend to, and we don't want anyone to follow us. We don't want any mysterious kindred spirits following us. Even if this person is a master from Tianxian." Jun Moxie was not polite at all. "Young lad, do you know the consequences of being so rude to an old man like me? If I wanted to keep the two of you here, would I need to spend more effort?" The old man seemed to be very angry, and he glared at him. Hearing this, Jun Wui snorted coldly. He straightened his back and was about to step forward. "Young lad? Are you talking about that?" "Old man, I don't like to create unnecessary karma. I just don't want to kill you for no reason. You can try to keep us here. Let's see who will stay here." A sharp light flashed in Jun Mo Xia's eyes, and a blue light sparkled. His body leaned forward, and he spread out his hands. With a peng sound, a deep blue ocean appeared between his hands. Old man, since you have the guts to follow us, you should be prepared to go to the netherworld. I'll fulfill your wish. Jun Moxie's eyes were full of disdain as he looked at the old man. The netherworld is inviting a guest. Go on your way. Jun Moxie's eyes were full of confidence. He had already grasped the life and death of this old man. It seemed that this middle-level Tianxian old man was as weak as an ant in his eyes. He could easily crush him to death. Tianxian Peak. The masked old man was shocked. He took 3 steps back, and the look in his eyes changed from one of confidence to one of horror. Others could be faked to deceive people, but the inherent color of a Tianxian Peak couldn't be deceived. Could it be that a Tianxian Peak expert could retain his youthful appearance, and even rejuvenate his youth? This was a direct collision. One was a Tianxian Peak expert, and the other was a Tianxian Peak expert. How could they fight this battle? Damn it! Since when were there so many Tianxian Peak experts in Tianxiang City? This chapter has been written for 9 hours. Modify, delete, write again, modify again, delete again. In total, I've been tossing and turning for nearly 10,000 words. I still can't decide what to do with those deformed and pitiful people. This is the first time I've been in such a dilemma since I started writing this book. I'll post it like this. Everyone, please leave a comment and express your opinion. Chapter 124. Brother, your Xian Qi cultivation is unfathomable. I admit that I am not as good as you. I apologize for my previous slip of the tongue. However, the battle with Tianxian will surely shock the world. I will ask for your advice in the future. But I will not change my mind. If we are fated to meet again in the future, we will understand clearly. The old man turned his feet and leaped into the air like a whirlwind. With a flash of blue light, he disappeared without a trace. He did not stay any longer. He walked away without looking back, like a wild horse that had its buttocks cut by a knife. His speed was extremely fast. Jun Wui breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at Jun Moxie cautiously. Mo Xia, you have the cultivation of Tianxian? How is this possible? This is incredible. Jun Mo Xia laughed, but didn't say anything. He winked and the two hurriedly slipped away. After walking for a long distance, the two had changed their clothes several times. A small forest appeared in front of them. Just before they approached the forest, Jun Moxie suddenly stopped. He turned around and said loudly, I didn't expect there to be someone who doesn't know life from death. Are you not afraid of death? Do you want to go on your own, or do you want me to send you back to your hometown? Jun Wui was shocked. Someone was following him again. He did not find anything this time. He could not help but feel frustrated. But this time, after waiting for a long time, there was no sound at all. Jun Moxie smiled and said, well, we can go home after we pass through this forest. I have confirmed that no one is following us. Jun Wui suddenly understood. Mo Xia, you have been lying all along. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes. Third uncle, you don't think that I am really at the peak of Tianxian, do you? You are already at the early stage of Tianxian, but you did not notice the old man's existence. How can I find him? That old man is strong, but his psychological quality is not good. As soon as he heard that I was going to kill him, he immediately ran away. He is too weak. Ha! That can only mean that your expression and tone are too realistic. Jun Wui shook his head and smiled bitterly. So that's how it is. If it were me, I'm afraid I would have been tricked out by you as well. Coupled with that azure light, no matter who you trust, you will run away. There's nothing we can do about it. Who knew that we would do such a big thing this time? If he wasn't careful, wouldn't he bring disaster to his family? That was a Tianxian expert just now. His strength was probably only slightly inferior to Grandpa. He really had the strength to take us down. It would be unwise to create a strong enemy for ourselves. Jun Moxie quickly passed through the forest. As he walked, he said, I reckon that behind the Huanghua Hall, there must be a powerful person in charge. We have no choice but to guard against them. Moreover, we shouldn't make too many strong enemies. Before we completely eradicate them, we absolutely cannot expose ourselves. Hearing the sound of Jun Wui passing through the forest behind him, Jun Moxie paused and said, Third uncle, pay attention to my feet and follow me. Jun Wui heard this and was puzzled. Could it be that there was some kind of mystery in the way of walking? However, Jun Wui was already accustomed to listening to Jun Moxie's words. He closely followed him and carefully paid attention to his route. At first, he didn't feel anything. But after a while, he realized that Jun Moxie's way of walking was quite ingenious. Although Jun Moxie was passing through the forest at high speed, his limbs didn't touch any branches. With one hand in front and the other at the back, his left hand in front of him gently and quickly pushed aside the branches and leaves in front of him. His body passed through in the blink of an eye. Unexpectedly, he was able to not shake off even a yellow leaf that was about to fall. His hand behind him also returned the branches and leaves to their original positions in the blink of an eye. His feet stepped on the leaves with the tips of his toes. After passing through quickly, he unexpectedly didn't leave a single trace. In fact, he didn't even step on a tiny bug under his feet. Every step he took was just enough to cover his body and face with the surrounding leaves, branches, and trunks. At the same time, his hands were placed in front of him and behind him, one high and one low. He maintained an absolute balance at all times. This coordinated with the contraction of his muscles. Unexpectedly, he was in the best state of preparation to attack at every moment. All these movements were natural, yet extremely fast. The coordination between his hands, eyes, feet, and waist could be said to be seamless. However, it appeared to be smooth and natural. It seemed that all of these movements were completely instinctive. At the same time, he unexpectedly sealed his breathing and his pores. Not a single trace of Duju's scent leaked out from his body. This whole set of movements did not seem to be eye-catching. However, only an expert would be able to see that with this kind of ability, no one would be able to discover his tracks in the forest. His feet were full of fallen leaves and dried branches. However, when Jun Moxie stepped on them, he did not make any sound. Moreover, on a dried leaf not far in front of him, there was a colorful little bird. It was still stretching its neck and singing after Jun Moxie had passed by. Such a big living person had passed by in front of it. However, as a bird that was naturally sensitive to and afraid of humans, it actually did not notice at all. Jun Wui was a little overwhelmed with shock. As a strong Tianxian warrior, a high-level warrior, and a great general who had been on expeditions all year round, he clearly knew how difficult it was to achieve what Jun Moxie had achieved. And this kind of realm was not something that could be achieved with a high level of Xian Qi cultivation. This experience of Jun Moxie had completely integrated into his blood and instincts. Even if it was a strong person at the peak of the supreme Shenxian, if he did not go through strict and systematic training, he would definitely not be able to achieve what Jun Moxie had achieved. Even if he had trained, it would be very difficult to achieve such an unimaginable result. Jun Wui thought that he was already careful and meticulous enough. However, compared to Jun Moxie's movements, Jun Wui looked at the footprints behind him, the dried branches that he had stepped on, and the traces that he had left along the way. He could not help but feel ashamed. Even if it is a dried leaf that is about to fall off, if it is intentionally or unintentionally touched, there will be special scars. These are all subtle clues that are helpful for tracking. In this world, the conditions for survival can be very strange. However, the traces that lead to people's defeat can be found everywhere. Therefore, we must be cautious, especially in the face of so many powerful enemies. June Moxie spoke in a low voice. Ever since they had come out, the relationship between June Moxie and his third uncle seemed to have been reversed. But surprisingly, both of them felt that this was a matter of course. In fact, the third uncle June Wooey was much more orthodox than the hitman June Moxie. The third uncle had a strong sense of justice, and was chivalrous and courageous. He was warm-hearted, and would not hesitate to help others. This was his lovable and respectable part. The hitman June was admittedly a very lovable assassin, but his principles were somewhat excessive. For example, although he had already decided to deal with the Huanghua Hall, but if it hadn't been for that girl's copper coin falling at his feet, then he might not have made his move today. And this unlucky principle had created a fundamental difference between the hitman June and the third master June. The character of this uncle and nephew pair were poles apart. June Moxie certainly admired and respected people like the third uncle, but his heart would never approve of such a person. There was no other reason for this. Although this kind of person was worthy of the admiration of everyone in the world, but his sense of justice was too strong. Moreover, his actions were inflexible, and often led to defeat, and even death. In fact, the defeat was so painful that it was not worth it. The third uncle June's respectable strength was actually his fatal weakness. The hitman June had determined that if someone were to use this point to set up a trap, then it would absolutely be a success. But if someone were to use this point to make a fuss about June Moxie, then they would absolutely not be able to achieve any results. In fact, they might even go for wool and come home shorn. Therefore, June Moxie had been instilling new ideas into June Wooey almost all the time. He didn't expect June Wooey to completely change, but he hoped that it would slightly influence his style of doing things. In certain situations, it would be advantageous for him to make a choice. And ever since June Moxie had healed June Wooey's injuries, and his body had recovered, he had speculated that June Moxie was being taught by an unrivaled master. Therefore, he had long since become accustomed to the strange actions of June Moxie. These methods and experiences of June Moxie should have been taught to him by that unrivaled master. His nephew had taught him this, and it was tantamount to him learning from that master. This was not a shameful thing, and even more so not something that he could not accept. Therefore, June Wooey's state of mind was very calm. Today, June Moxie accompanied June Wooey. The main purpose was to accompany his third uncle to relax, and the other was to go to the Spirit Fog Lake's Ni Chang Pavilion to see that Lady Yu. After all, this girl seemed to have an unresolvable enmity with the June family. If he could get rid of her as soon as possible, it would be better to get rid of her as soon as possible. But when he thought about taking his uncle to a brothel, especially when his third uncle had just recovered, this seemed to be a bit inappropriate. Don't look at how June Wooey didn't say anything, but if he said that they were going to a brothel, it was estimated that he would be beaten up. Therefore, June Moxie simply cancelled his original plan. However, today's harvest was not small. The most important thing was that today, he had taught June Wooey how to use the disguise technique. In the future, his third uncle, who had been in a wheelchair for 10 years, would definitely not be able to stay at home after he recovered. If that was the case, then he would have more and more time to himself, hee. Third uncle, when we go back, I will have to trouble you with a matter. June Moxie spoke as he walked, deliberately slowing his movements so that June Wooey could see clearly. These were skills that would help him in the future. I bought a large piece of meteoric iron, and I would like to ask third uncle to cut it for me. June Moxie had used all of his magic treasures, but he didn't know what kind of material the meteoric iron was made of, but the more he refined it, the stronger it became. Although it had shrunk in size, and its weight had also lightened a lot, but he was still unable to melt it. With his current ability, he didn't have any hope of cutting the meteoric iron, so he had no choice but to ask for help. June Wooey may not be stronger than the hitman, but his Xian Qi cultivation was comparable to that of the Tian Xian family, and this was something that the hitman could never hope to achieve. No problem. June Wooey readily agreed. Now that his body had completely recovered, and his Xian Qi was still rising in the Tian Xian realm, and the blazing heart meridian's residual efficacy was also slowly but continuously playing a role, so he was full of confidence. Whatever you want, I'll cut it into whatever shape you want. Ha. Chapter 125. Over the next few days, Jun Wui had to endure the sound of Jun Mo Xia hammering away at the iron. Although he had cut them into the shape of small knives, but whether it was the sharpness or the balance of the weight, Jun Mo Xia had to personally craft them to a satisfactory degree. Moreover, he would be more familiar with the use of the knives that he had polished himself. Jun Moxie had the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to recover at any time. But the few burly men who lit the fire and played the bellows had their arms swollen to the size of their thighs. Mo Xia, there's something I'm curious about. Why haven't I seen you practice martial arts? Jun Wui was a little surprised. Guan Qing Han's so-called feeding was just a game to Jun Moxie. A painful game. But apart from that, Jun Wui had never seen Jun Moxie have any time to meditate or practice martial arts. But his mysterious abilities had shocked him more and more. It seemed that he was improving at every moment. Even if it couldn't be said that he was traveling 1,000 miles in one step, it was close. How could this not shock Jun Wui? Practice martial arts? Jun Moxie looked at him in surprise. Third uncle, I'm practicing martial arts every moment. Why can't you see it? What kind of look is that? Huh? Jun Wui couldn't help but widen his eyes in surprise. Could it be that third uncle really thinks that only by calming down, holding one's breath, sitting cross-legged, and nourishing one's dantian can one be considered as practicing martial arts? Jun Mo Xia's tone of voice was somewhat flabbergasted. I feel that Xian cultivation can be carried out at all times. While eating, while walking, while fighting, while talking, while standing, sitting, walking, running. Anything can be done to cultivate. Even when you're sleeping, you can hypnotize yourself before you sleep, and you can still practice in your dreams. There are 24 hours in a day, and I don't waste even a minute or a second. Even though we are talking right now, I am still practicing. How can you say that I am not practicing? Or rather, you should ask me when I don't practice martial arts. Jun Moxie smiled. You can do that? Jun Wui's eyes widened even more in shock. When you walk, you practice lightness kung fu, alertness, and sensitivity of touch. At the same time, you can also practice your eyes, ears, and body touch. All of these can be practiced. As long as you have the heart, you can practice martial arts. Jun Mo Xia replied in a serious manner, it's the same when you're in battle, but you'll need to practice your state of mind. When you're alone, you'll need to temper your willpower. When you're busy, you'll need to keep your heart calm. As for your Xian Gong, it's running automatically all the time. Unless you're at the stage of breaking through, you can practice your Xian Gong at any other time. Is it hard to understand? Jun Moxie said as if it was a matter of course, but he noticed that Jun Wui's eyes widened more and more, and it seemed like they were going to pop out. You're practicing martial arts, and you're doing these dodging and evading actions instinctively. You're multitasking, and you're not messed up at all. Jun Wui gasped, isn't this a little too difficult? How can it be multitasking? Jun Moxie said with some helplessness, everything has to be integrated into the instinct, and you have to do it naturally. You don't need to think, and you don't need to do it deliberately. How can you say that you're multitasking? Jun Wui was speechless. He finally realized one thing, his nephew was a freak. He was a normal person. Comparing himself with a freak, wasn't he looking for trouble? This kind of unimaginable cultivation method, if it was anyone else, they would have long been possessed by the devil, and it was not impossible for them to drive themselves crazy. But from his mouth, it was as normal as eating cabbage. How could it be so easy to practice martial arts and qi? Third uncle, you don't have to be too deliberate. In fact, it's just a process of habit becoming natural. For example, when we walk, our eyes are looking ahead, our feet are stepping on the road, and our mouth is talking. At the same time, we smell the fragrance of the earth, the fragrance of the flowers, or the stench, and our eyes see red, green, yellow, people, horses, and other things. But we do not delay anything, and we can distinguish all these clearly in our minds. Strictly speaking, these are all things that can be done by multitasking, but we do not. Everything is done naturally. June Moxie smiled leisurely. In fact, practicing martial arts can also be done like this. The reason why you can't do it is that you're not focused enough on practicing martial arts, and you're not absolutely devoted enough. That's all. Every day, no matter what you do, tell yourself, I'm practicing martial arts. At first, you might not be used to it, but over time, this sentence will become your habit. At that time, when you are doing something, you will start practicing martial arts. Over time, you will feel that you are practicing martial arts, and you won't feel any difference. It's that simple. June Moxie smiled. For example, the two of us, uncle and nephew, didn't delay anything, and didn't even think about it. We're already home, aren't we? Jun Wui pondered, and raised his head. Sure enough, the back door of the June residence was not far away. No wonder you're so indifferent to everything. It turns out that in your heart, you're indifferent to everything, including life. Oh, it's not indifferent, but something similar to open-mindedness. Jun Wui pondered, but couldn't explain it. It was only now that he realized that he had unconsciously imitated June Moxie's movements along the way. Now that he stopped, he actually felt an indescribable sense of fatigue. June Moxie's xian qi and body were obviously not as good as his, but he didn't show the slightest sign of fatigue. He had to admit that habit was indeed a very powerful force. He had just returned home when a servant came to report, General Dugu Wudi has come to look for the third young master. Young Master Tang Yuan has also come to look for the third young master. His colleague had also received 3 invitations, and they were actually inviting June Moxie to a banquet. It was a coincidence that the first prince, the second prince, and the third prince had invited the first prince. His Majesty the Emperor's 3 sons had all started to make friends with that debauchee, June Moxie. This matter was very strange. Jun Wui looked at him deeply, and said, Xia, from now on, you walk your own path. You know what you're doing, and that's enough. I will make it clear to your grandfather that we will no longer restrict you. He paused for a moment, and then continued, we believe in you. June Moxie's performance during this period of time had made Jun Wui feel very relieved. In fact, he had even begun to admire him. Therefore, he decided to let go, and leave everything to June Moxie. That was because he realized that June Moxie seemed to not care about anything. But, he cared about one thing. No matter what he did, he didn't like to be disturbed. Even if it was just sitting, standing, or walking, he had his own style. Moreover, his vigilance had become his instinct. Anyone who wanted to take advantage of someone like Jun Xia was undoubtedly more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Thank you, third uncle. June Moxie was silent for a moment. Then, he sincerely thanked him. June Moxie. You, what kind of weird stuff did you put in that bullshit wine? 7 of them were still unconscious. If anything happens to them, I will tear you apart. Great General Dugu Wudi flew into a rage. He had jumped up the moment June Moxie showed up. The usually valiant old man Dugu had unexpectedly become a lot more haggard in one night. The Dugu family's 7 ferocious brothers had been sleeping soundly ever since they had been carried back. They had yet to wake up. Even when they tried to drink sobering soup, tea, vinegar, soy sauce, none of them had any effect. Even when they were stabbed with a knife, there was still no response. If it weren't for the thunderous snoring of the 7 brothers, which was enough to prove that they had drunk too much, old man Dugu would have probably gone crazy. Jun Zhantian's grandson is a grandson, but my grandson isn't a grandson. You've knocked out 7 of them in one go. How can I live like this? But drinking to such an extent is truly unprecedented, and no one will ever be able to do so. Dugu Wudi, a little bastard like you dares to be so rude in front of this old man? Do you really think that this old man doesn't dare to teach you a lesson? Previously, you allowed your grandson to cause trouble in my June residence and wantonly destroyed everything. Then, you left without a care in the world. You said that you would compensate me according to the price, but this old man didn't even see a single silver. Now, your son and nephew stole wine and drank too much. So, you want to blame me? Is there still justice in this world? Old man June's voice was sinister. They haven't woken up yet? Ha, that's easy. June Moxie snickered in his heart. I knew you wouldn't be able to wake them up. He lazily sat down on the armchair and crossed his legs. What did I do to them? They obviously have a hangover. Look at you. But, if you want me to wake them up, I will need money. Money. Dugu Wudi's face turned black. The great general couldn't understand. Although the June family couldn't cover the sky with one hand in Tianxiang, they were still a super family in name. So, how could their only successor be such a money grubber? Money every time he opened his mouth, he would swindle and blackmail. He would resort to every conceivable means. He dared to ask for 25 million silver for a jug of wine. Even the emperor wouldn't be as ruthless as him. How much do you want this time? I'll say this first. Don't open your mouth if you want to swindle me. Dugu Wudi clenched his teeth as he looked at Grandpa June, who was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. It's not much. 70,000 taels of silver should be enough for the materials needed to wake them up. I'm absolutely honest with you, and I'm honest with you. It's a good price, and it's genuine. June Mo Xia stretched out 5 fingers from his right hand, and stretched out 2 fingers from his left hand. Fortunately, it's only 70,000 silver taels. Otherwise, your fingers wouldn't even have enough, Dugu Wudi taunted. Chapter 126. Dugu Wudi's face turned purple as he fiercely threw out a stack of banknotes. He felt extremely depressed. It was hard to imagine that the legendary Jun Wu Hui, who commanded thousands of troops, would raise such a scoundrel as a son. Jun Moxie got up and walked out. After a while, he came back with a few burly men behind him, each carrying a small jar of wine. Here, 7 jars. Everyone, drink a few more bowls, as many jars as you can. I'll be fine after I neutralize the alcohol in my stomach. Head intoxication needed to be washed down with alcohol before it would be effective. Are you playing with me? Dugu Wudi flew into a rage. Do you think I haven't tried this method before? He had already fed them quite a lot, but it was useless. Vomit as much as you drink. What do you know? The reason why they are drunk is because they secretly drank my secret top-grade wine source. 1 cup is equivalent to a jug of new wine, so you can imagine how strong the wine is. Each of them drank at least 1 bowl, so how could they not be drunk? If an ordinary person were to drink so much top-grade wine, it would be hard to tell if they would be drunk to death. If they were to use ordinary methods to cure the effects of alcohol, it would be difficult for them to do so. Even if you know to mix it with wine to make their stomachs react and neutralize it, my wine is far superior to any ordinary wine in the world. Naturally, it's difficult to neutralize it. Only the origin wine that I brewed myself and blended together can produce the effect of water and milk. Only then could it have the effect of dispelling the alcohol. Do you understand? If you don't have any knowledge, you should at least have some common sense. If you don't have common sense, you should at least have some experience. What great general of the empire! Jun Mo Xia was merciless. Even if what you said makes sense, then, there's no need for 7 jars of wine, right? There were only 7 of them, so 2 jars of wine would be enough. Aren't you clearly blackmailing me? Dugu Wudi really did not understand the difference between white spirit source intoxication and ordinary intoxication, so he could only avoid this topic. This was 10,000 taels of silver for a jar. It was a sky-high price. My wine hasn't opened for business yet. Today is the opening day. Jun Moxie smiled as he weighed the banknotes in his hand. That's why I've already sold it to you at a very cheap price. I might not be able to sell it at this price in the future. Dugu Wudi walked away with a black face. He really didn't want to stay any longer. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his temper, and would beat up that brat in front of Grandpa Jun. This time, I heard that you provoked that girl from the Dugu family. Grandpa Jun smiled kindly and narrowed his eyes. His gaze was filled with the desire to hug his great-grandson. Grandpa, don't mess around. I can't wait to hide from that wild girl. I'm just curious. Why did their whole family come and say that I bullied their daughter? It's obviously their daughter who bullied me, okay? Jun Moxie sighed with grievance. It's really unreasonable. What's so unreasonable about this? It's very simple. That girl has obviously taken a fancy to you. Grandpa Jun smiled like a sly old fox. If that girl hadn't taken a fancy to you, they wouldn't have come here to cause trouble. That old bastard Dugu Zongheng has calculated everything clearly. Every day, he plays the fool. Humph, how could this old man not see through his cunning mind? What cunning mind? Jun Moxie felt strange. He really didn't understand this matter. Dugu Xiaoyi has taken a fancy to you. Silly boy, on one hand, the Dugu family doesn't want you to be their son-in-law. On the other hand, His Majesty also won't allow you to be their son-in-law. This isn't difficult to understand, right? Jun Zhantian stroked his beard. Of course I understand. If the two military families of the Tianxiang Empire were to unite by marriage, it would be a huge threat to the imperial family. Jun Moxie nodded. It seemed as if he understood tacitly. You still don't understand. Grandpa Jun was somewhat depressed. Why is this grandson of mine making such a mistake on this matter? However, the Dugu family has also prepared for the worst. If Dugu Xiaoyi really wants to commit suicide and refuses to marry you, they will first come here to cause trouble. Then, they will find an excuse to torment you. Then, the two families will openly fight. Of course, it will be a fake fight. Do you understand now? Let His Majesty understand that although the Jun family has married the most favored daughter of the Dugu family, the two families have completely fallen out. When the time comes, there won't be any trouble. Instead, His Majesty will personally act as a matchmaker for the two of you in order to prevent internal strife. Do you still not understand? Dugu Zongheng sent his grandchildren to cause trouble. No matter what happens in the future, he will be prepared in advance. Now, this old thing must be very proud of himself. Humph. Grandpa Jun was furious. That old bastard Dugu Zongheng is treating this old man like a fool. He didn't realize that even this old man can see through his intentions, let alone His Majesty. This old man doesn't even know how to play tricks. He's really a pig. If we don't prepare in advance, it will be difficult to avoid being implicated by this old man. Jun Mo Xia was left dumbstruck by the news. He really couldn't imagine what these old men were thinking about every day. Even a transmigrator like him couldn't keep up with their pace of thinking. Let's work harder. Grandpa Jun winked at his grandson and encouraged him. Marrying or not marrying is not a problem. Let this old man hold my great-grandson first. That is the most important thing right now. Jun Moxie was sweating profusely. What kind of grandfather is this? It's hard for a grandson not to learn bad things. Let's put this aside for now. In any case, if something happens, it will be Dugu Zongheng who will have a headache first. It has nothing to do with our Jun family. Who told his granddaughter to like my grandson? Grandpa Jun was extremely irresponsible. Let's talk about the matter at hand first. You are now very popular. The three princes are fighting to curry favor with you. TSK, you are really awesome. I can't help it. I am so handsome that even men want to look at me. June Moxie touched his chin. He was quite intoxicated by it. He is indeed very handsome. How can a descendant of my June family not be handsome? June Zhantian did not despise June Moxie's narcissism. Instead, he was very intoxicated. But whether he is handsome or not has nothing to do with him. It only matters to those little girls. You should think about how to deal with these three people. Let me tell you, these three are not easy to deal with. Once they stick to you, you won't be able to get rid of them. Don't think that just because you are a little clever, they will sell you out. Understand? Yes, I understand. In fact, my plan is... June Moxie didn't want to say it. But after thinking about it, he decided to let Grandpa June be prepared. You don't need to tell me your specific plan. That is your own business. You understand? It has nothing to do with our June family. As long as you have your own plan, this old man is not interested. Do you understand? Grandpa June didn't let him finish. He waved his hand and interrupted him. He walked away with his hands behind his back. June Moxie was speechless. Don't ask if you don't want to know. I wasn't going to tell you. But now, I have been struggling in my heart for a long time. I want to tell you everything, but you are the one who dropped the ball. June Dashao shook his head and returned to his small courtyard. He saw that Fatty Tang was anxiously waiting for him. It had been a long time since he had seen him. Since the last time, Hitman June had been busy treating Third Master June's injuries, recuperating, and accompanying him on his business trips. He hadn't seen this good friend of his for more than a month. To be honest, he really did miss him. However, this missing feeling disappeared the moment he saw him again. A certain huge lump of meat kept asking a certain little girl, when is he coming back? Then, he asked, why isn't he back yet? Then, he asked, he didn't die outside, right? The little maid, Little Ku, was trembling as she received Tang Yuan. She was a little afraid of this ferocious-looking giant fatty. She was afraid that he would suddenly fall down and hit her. Her small body wouldn't be able to bear it. She might even be crushed to death on the spot. Fatty Tang, what are you doing here? June Moxie held the 3 invitations in his hand. He felt like he was holding 3 bombs. These 3 brothers didn't discuss this beforehand. They sent the invitations at the same time. What's the meaning of this? He was having a headache when he saw this body of greasy fat. It was really uncomfortable. Woo woo. Third young master, you're back. You have to give your brother an idea. I don't want to live anymore. I won't be able to see you again. Tang Yuan's snot and tears streamed down his face. If you don't give me an idea this time, you'll what? You'll eat one more meal. You don't want to live anymore? Hurry up and find a good place to settle this. What's the matter with me? June Moxie sat on the chair in front of him. He tilted his head and looked at him. Fatty, just say it. Don't put on a sad show. What happened to you? He suddenly slapped his thigh. You lost your wife again. Fuck. Tang Yuan cursed. Am I that kind of person? If you don't say it, I'm going to sleep. June Moxie was about to get up. Don't. Master. You're my master. Boss, you have to give me an idea. Otherwise, I'm dead. Tang Yuan hurriedly stopped him. Hurry up and get to the point. I'm very busy. I don't have time to play with you. June Moxie narrowed his eyes. I can't bear to look back. Third young master, the old master wants to send me to the palace. Tang Yuan cried. What? Your grandfather wants you to be a eunuch? Your grandfather is too open-minded, isn't he? June Moxie quivered, and sat up straight. His eyes were perfectly round as he stared at June Moxie. You're the one who wants to be a eunuch. Tang Yuan was furious. Are there no other positions in the palace besides eunuchs? Of course there are other positions, but they're not suitable for you. Only this position is barely passable. Jun Moxie rubbed his chin and laughed. What do you mean? Do you think I'm only suitable to be a eunuch? You're pissing me off. Tang Yuan was furious. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Then tell me, what are your strengths? What kind of position can you be? Jun Moxie ignored the angry fatty Tang and smiled faintly. I have many strengths, such as... Fatty Tang gave an example for a long time but could not continue. Don't give an example. Your grandfather wants you to replace Murong Qianjun, right? Jun Moxie saw how embarrassed Fatty was and decided not to tease him anymore. He gave him a sidelong glance and said with a faint smile. Chapter 127. So swift and resolute. Your old man is too skillful. Amazing. Jun Moxie was shocked. Fatty's father's methods were indeed amazing. To be the commander of the imperial bodyguards, one would not be able to do so without real talent. But Fatty's father was able to pull all the strings and let Fatty Tang take on this incredible position. Truly amazing. Really amazing. This is really distressing. Third young master, what my father and grandfather want is for me to first develop in the palace, first grasp the level of the palace, and then temper myself in this big vat of dye. Then, my father will choose the right time to transfer me outside, toss and turn, and finally come back. At that time, I will conveniently inherit my father's position. Do you understand? Tang Yuan had a bitter expression on his face. In other words, you will be the next head of the Tang family? Jun Moxie's eyes widened. This was too unbelievable. Based on this fatty's conduct, he was going to be the head of the Tang family. The head of the Tang family, one of the largest families in the Tianxiang Empire. Who would believe this? Yes, it happened a few days ago. I don't know where this old man came from, but he said that he was my grandfather's good friend from 40 years ago. Tang Yuan was furious. Damn it, we haven't heard from each other for 40 years. Now that the Tang family has become rich, he came over to acknowledge us as good friends. How can there be such a good friend? But my grandfather actually believed him. Stop. What does this have to do with you? Jun Moxie felt a headache coming on. This fatty's words were jumping too far. What was this all about? How can it have nothing to do with me? After that old bastard came to the Tang family, he conducted a series of tests on Tang staff, Tang Bao, and Tang Gua. After that, he happily told my grandfather that those three good-for-nothings were the best at cultivating Xian Qi. He proposed to take them as his disciples, and promised that he would raise them to the Earth Xian level within 10 years. My grandfather was overjoyed when he heard that, and agreed without hesitation. My grandfather only has 4 grandsons. Tang Yuan sighed. Do you understand now? I still don't understand. All I understand is that the Tang family may have 3 more Earth Xian experts in 10 years. This is a great thing for the Tang family. But, this has nothing to do with you. What are you trying to say? Jun Moxie looked at him blankly. Third young master, you're usually so smart. Why are you so stupid today? If the 3 brothers leave with master, what will happen to the Tang family? Someone had to inherit it, right? Am I not the only one left? Who else should I beat up if not Dad and old Master Qin? Isn't this what it means to force a duck onto a perch? Tang Yuan was somewhat speechless. Let me explain it to you, third young master. Families like ours, big or small, have a mix of good and bad, but they all have one thing in common. That is, as long as one person is the head of the family, he will be able to maintain the family's business. Then, the others with good aptitudes and potential in the cultivation of Xian Qi will be nurtured into the family's guardian deity. During this period of time, it is best to have the guidance of a famous master. Then, when these people are successful in cultivating Xian Qi, they will start to train the next generation in their family. They will train men of sacrifice, and cultivate secret forces. This will be passed down from generation to generation. Gradually, the family will become so deeply rooted that even the royal family will not dare to provoke it. This will ensure that the ancestors' incense will burn for thousands of years to come. All the families are working hard in this direction. And I, for no reason, have become such an unlucky person. Can you understand my pain? Tang Yuan sighed. Understand my ass. I think you are the one who is sick. Jun Moxie said disdainfully. You are given a high position and a generous salary. You are the head of the family. You are given a lifetime of glory. Are you still not satisfied? If it were not for the fact that the three of them are talented in cultivation, you would not have had such a good opportunity in your life. You are just showing off, aren't you? Do you know that in the secular world, the inheritance right of a family or a little property can make brothers turn against each other? They will fight each other and break up the family. You are still trying to show off. I don't want to be an official. I don't want to be the head of the family. Fuck. How many times do you want me to say it? Tang Yuan shouted with a red face and neck. Show off my D***CK. Let's not talk about how much responsibility the head of the family has to bear. Just talk about the intrigue and traps in the officialdom. Do you really think I am made of it? Can I bear it? I don't have any ability. I just want to be free for the rest of my life. I want to be a free and unfettered playboy. I have never wanted to bear any responsibility. I don't have the shoulders, and I don't have the heart. Do you understand? Tang Yuan roared, spittle flying. You don't want to be an official, you don't want to be the head of the family, and you don't want to bear the responsibility. Then what do you want to do? Jun Moxie frowned. Third young master, if others don't understand me, there is still love. Don't you understand me? We are bosom friends. You want to live a happy life. I want to do the same. But I am not a woman. Tang Yuan's eyes shone with longing. Brother, in this life, the things that I love the most are silver and gold. Watching silver and gold fall from other people's pockets into my own, that kind of feeling is really refreshing. Jun Moxie was speechless for 5 seconds. What kind of person is this? Who is your bosom friend? Your bosom friend is Jun Moxie, okay, not me. Although I am Jun Moxie, but I am really not me. You like to have sex the most, but I like to do business the most. As for my family's business, I only hope that I can take over the family business, and then open my Tang family's business to every corner of the continent. Tang Yuan waved his arm, which was thicker than Jun Moxie's thigh, majestically. Following his bold movements, the fat on his body danced happily. That's not difficult. You can just explain it to old master. Jun Moxie was puzzled. Don't look at Tang Yuan. In Jun Moxie's impression, Fatty was an expert in doing business. Perhaps this was the only redeeming quality of Fatty. And there was no reason for old Master Tang not to approve of it. I understand. Tang Yuan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. With a swoosh, he took off his robe, revealing his back, which was as fat as a pig's. Cried out in alarm and turned her head away, her face completely red. See, third young master. This is the result of explaining things to the old man. Tang Yuan sucked in a breath of cold air as he showed his back to Jun Moxie. So, forceful. Jun Moxie was dumbstruck as he looked at the 10 bruises on Tang Yuan's back. The bruises were purple with a hint of black. Look at this. There were 5 or 6 footprints on Fatty Tang's stomach. Then, he put down his clothes and said resentfully, I won't show you my butt. It's even worse than these two places. It almost beat the shit out of me. That's awesome. June Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Looks like there's no turning back. Let's not talk about these useless things. Since your father has already paved the way for you, I believe that as long as you don't cause too much trouble, you'll definitely be able to deal with it easily. For now, let's not say that you don't know what's good for you. To be honest, even if I'm willing to think of a way for you now, there's nothing I can think of. All the procedures are just a formality for you now. I advise you to be an honest official, and then take over as the head of the family. June Dashao was speechless. For the sake of this official position, who knew how many people had racked their brains to curry favor, even abandoning their wives and children. They were heartless and unscrupulous. Yet, Fatty Tang was enjoying the fruits of their labor, and yet he was unwilling. What is this? Is he more evil than me? Isn't that robbing my rice bowl? I'd rather die in glory than live in dishonor. I'd rather die than submit. Tang Yuan stood up passionately and placed one hand on his chest. With a resolute expression, he looked out the door and recited a poem. I don't manage the family, I don't want to be an official. My life's wish is to make a lot of money. Pfft. June Moxie fell on his butt along with the chair, looking battered and exhausted. I've lived 2 lives, but I've never seen such a clown before. It's not that there's no way, because there's still a link that hasn't been cleared. This link can't be bribed even if I spend all my family's assets. Tang Yuan squinted his eyes. He seemed to be in a good mood after writing a poem. It's that old eunuch Zhu. Old eunuch Zhu. As June Moxie spoke, an idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Fatty Tang is very good at doing business. Moreover, his family doesn't allow him to do business. If I help him with this huge favor, then the two of us can start a business together. Perhaps it will save me a lot of time to save up my wealth. With this thought, June Moxie immediately looked at Tang Yuan with a strange look, making Fatty Tang's hair stand on end. You. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not into that kind of thing. I'm still a virgin. Tang Yuan hugged his chest, feeling a little scared. Ugh. June Moxie finally felt a little proud, but his internal organs started to churn because of this sentence. Alright, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Just tell me, which stage is old eunuch Zhu in charge of? Let's see if I can think of any way. June Moxie rolled his eyes. Old eunuch Zhu was His Majesty's personal bodyguard. He had always kept a low profile, but June Moxie guessed that he should be an expert. Old eunuch Zhu's full name was Zhu Zhu Zhu. It was a very funny name, but big shots like Jun Zhantian and Duga Wudi were always polite to him. From this, it could be seen that this eunuch was an expert who was physically but not mentally disabled. He was definitely not an ordinary person. That old eunuch is in charge of the body examination. I'll be stripped naked and let that old thing fiddle with me over and over again. Tang Yuan's face was bitter. Although I'm a little fat, my body is definitely very healthy. I don't have any diseases. I can definitely pass. That's what worries me the most. Fatty Tang patted his belly. Although he was worried, he was also somewhat proud of himself. Suddenly, he mysteriously moved his head closer. I heard that when Murong Qian Jun was examined by him, he even twisted that thing for a long time. That pretty boy Murong Qian Jun had to walk with his legs wide open for the next half a month. That's really embarrassing. Fatty Tang's tone was one of schadenfreude and gossip. You're still in the mood to be happy. You'll have to walk with your legs wide open soon. June Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or to be angry. He glared at him. He couldn't imagine how this fatty's brain worked. Yes, third young master, you have to save me. I don't want to walk with my legs wide open. Tang Yuan suddenly remembered his own situation. Chapter 128. Body Examination. Strip naked, will the whole body be examined? June Moxie thoughtfully stretched out a finger and made a poking gesture, squinting his eyes. The back, will it also be examined? It's to check for hemorrhoids or something. Tang Yuan was a little bitter. Just in case. Those with hidden illnesses won't be able to pass. Fatty Tang felt a chill run down his spine, and the hairs on his body stood up. Third young master, when I heard that a man, no, a eunuch was going to do it everywhere, and I was going to have to strip naked. I was absolutely terrified. Don't even talk about emergencies. Fuck, what the hell is this? My hair is already standing on end. June Moxie scratched his arm, there was already a dense layer of goosebumps. The fact that even the hitman June's hair was standing on end, one could only imagine the horror. Is there a way? I'm counting on you. Tang Yuan looked at him hopefully. Yes. But, you must come and find me on the morning of the inspection. Then, I will help you prepare. In that case. June Moxie winked and smiled. Then, he suddenly burst into laughter while holding his stomach. I don't understand what you mean. Tang Yuan blinked his small eyes. You don't need to understand, in fact, I also don't want you to enter the palace, I also want to partner with you to do business. The two of us will make a fortune together. June Moxie smiled mischievously, carefully observing Fatty Tang's expression. Do business? Big business? Tang Yuan's spirit was shaken, he was even a little excited, he was moved to blink twice. Third young master. You really are my second parent, and also a roundworm in my stomach. Get lost. You'd better think about how they'll deal with you if you fail to live up to your father's expectations. It seems like all of your father's previous efforts have been in vain. June Moxie lifted his leg and kicked. Tang Yuan clutched his buttocks and cried out in pain. He grimaced in pain and said, I'm fine. As long as the imperial edict doesn't come, do you think my father will beat me to death? If I grind a little more, I'll be able to get a scapegoat, ha ha ha. Fatty Tang was safe and sound, so he walked away. June Moxie laughed heartily, suddenly feeling as if all the depression in his heart had been swept away. This fatty is really a clown, and a joker at that. As he was laughing, he suddenly remembered what Tang Yuan had said. A good friend that Tang Wanli had not contacted for 40 years suddenly appeared, and it was a super expert. He couldn't help but stop laughing. He smacked his lips and thought to himself, Supermaster. How super could it be? Was he also attracted by the news of the Xian Dan? Wasn't this too fast? If that's the case, it seems that Tianxiang City will soon be in turmoil. Anyway, the wind, the tiger, the cloud, and the dragon will each show their remarkable abilities. I'll just stay behind the scenes and reap the benefits. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune automatically operated in his body, and June Moxie could clearly feel that the energy flow in his meridians was now close to saturation. It had originally been a thin stream of energy, but now it had become a smooth stream of energy that was rapidly passing through his body. His movements also felt more free and at ease. June Moxie had a very strange premonition. There was no reason for it at all. It was as if the energy flow in his meridians had reached saturation, and the art of unlocking heaven's fortune had begun to enter the second stage. This was also the time to open the second layer of the exquisite Hengjun Pagoda. Therefore, during this period of time, June Moxie did not dare to be negligent in the slightest. At every moment, he operated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to increase his cultivation. In the last 2 days, June Moxie was pleasantly surprised to discover that he could not only absorb the energy from the Hengjun Pagoda, but could also absorb the same amount of energy from the outside world. Although the amount was very small and thin, it indicated that this was a huge improvement. June Moxie was looking forward to breaking through to the second layer of the Hengjun Pagoda. The first layer was just a foundation, and there was already such a terrifying existence. If he were to open the second layer, The temperature had dropped in recent days, and the autumn wind was bleak. The whole city was desolate. Yellow leaves were fluttering in the sky, but because June Moxie had been practicing at home most of the time, he had absorbed a large amount of energy from heaven and earth. Since he could not absorb it himself, he had scattered it around his courtyard. So much so that his courtyard and the neighboring courtyards of Junwui and Guanqinghan were covered in lush greenery. In fact, some branches were even sprouting new buds. The most bizarre thing was that Guanqinghan's most beloved ice-clear orchid had even sprouted a few small flower buds. This abnormal phenomenon had caused Guanqinghan to view it as a treasure. The upcoming storm in Tianxiang City had undoubtedly given June Moxie a lot of pressure. Pressure could also be a driving force. Therefore, June Moxie was forcing himself to improve his strength before the storm arrived. In his previous life, he had always been a loner, free and unfettered. He could do whatever he wanted. But in today's environment, June Moxie suddenly found himself lonely. Which big family did not have a group of people to protect them? If he wanted to live freely in this world, he could do it with his own strength. But if he wanted the entire June family to live comfortably, then it would be impossible without a strong force. The 300 men that he had personally trained were far from being of any use. For the first time in his life, June Moxie wanted to establish his own team. This was also the first time in both of his lives. Once he had helped his grandfather improve his strength, and resolved the June family's worries, then he would start to develop his own secret force. No matter what, he had to recruit a few experts. Otherwise, what could a few silver Xian and gold Xian experts do in the face of so many experts? If he wanted to recruit, then he had to recruit real experts. If they were mediocre, then he would rather give up. But if they were really top-notch experts, then how could they be so easily subdued? June Moxie scratched his head, suddenly fantasizing about a phrase he had read in his previous life: when the body of a tiger shakes, all the heroes under the heavens will bow their heads in worship. Everyone will be loyal and devoted, and from then on, they will lay a foundation that will last for eternity. If I could also shake my body like a tiger, all the heroes under the heavens will bow their heads in worship. How good would that be? June Moxie propped his chin in his hands as he fantasized. Holding the 3 invitations, June Moxie's eyes flashed. No matter what, the second prince's invitation must be given to him. The reason was simple: the banquet was to be held at the Nichang Pavilion. June Moxie had eavesdropped on that night, and the hatred of that Lady Yu towards the June family was still lingering in June Moxie's mind. Such a vicious woman, if June Moxie didn't find out about her background and then eradicate her, then he would feel sorry for himself. But the second prince's invitation had given June Moxie a very good opportunity. Also, counting the time, the matter of the Xian beast tendon crossbows should have been over for a long time, but I don't know if the people sent by my grandfather have received any news. As for the first prince's banquet at the Misty Rain Pavilion and the third prince's banquet at the Splendid Lake, June Moxie didn't care about them at all. For the time being, those places held no attraction for him. I've decided, I'll go to the Nichang Pavilion this afternoon. June Moxie beamed with a radiant smile, and strode out of the small courtyard with big strides. He was prepared to blatantly tell his grandfather that he was going to visit a brothel and ask him to assign 2 bodyguards, preferably strong ones. Just as he rushed out of the door, he saw Guanqinghan's snow-white robe slowly walking towards him, her cold eyes looking at June Moxie. "You're going out?" "Yes, I'm going to the Nichang Pavilion." June Moxie replied in a very honest manner. "Besides, this isn't a shameful matter. The emperor's son is treating me to a meal, and I'm only an invited guest. So, how can I be blamed for this? Shameless. Going to such a place and still acting so righteous. I thought you were really a prodigal son turning over a new leaf, but after pretending to be a good person for 2 days, you've revealed your true colors." Guanqinghan's face suddenly turned red with anger. She was about to step forward and teach him a lesson. This guy had been well behaved for a few days, but today he actually openly said in front of her that he wanted to go to a brothel. How could this be tolerated? Uncle can tolerate this, but sister-in-law cannot. June Moxie dodged Guan Qinghan's palm, laughed and said, "Sister-in-law, in fact, you look very good when you're angry. I'm just speaking from the bottom of my heart." Guan Qinghan's face was as cold as frost, her hand moved like the wind, not saying a word. If I don't teach this kid a lesson today, I'm afraid he'll revert to his old ways. In any case, today's routine exchange of pointers hasn't started yet. Third uncle is really too much. It was obviously grandfather who arranged this exchange of pointers. How could he just stop it? June Moxie dodged left and right. Then, he suddenly slid a few feet away. Then, he laughed mischievously and said, "Sister-in-law, let's postpone today's spar for now. I'll spar with you later. She's still waiting for me." Then, he disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Guan Qinghan was so angry that her chest felt stuffy. June Moxie's words were the truth. The second prince was indeed waiting for him at the Nichang Pavilion, but in Guan Qinghan's ears, it was as if he was talking about those lowly prostitutes waiting for him. How could she not fly into a rage? This kid has been acting like a man for the past few days. I can't let him continue like this. If I do so, how can I face my deceased in-laws and his elder brother? Guan Qinghan bit her lips and quickly walked towards Grandpa June's study. June Moxie was amazed as he walked. He almost couldn't believe his own subtle progress. Previously, when he was sparring with Guan Qinghan, he was unable to display his true strength. Moreover, he had to try his best to restrain his instinct to kill. In a situation where he was unable to retaliate, it was naturally quite difficult for him to dodge. But today, under the circumstances of Guan Qinghan's rage, he was actually able to dodge and dodge with ease. That day, he even managed to hit a vital point of a Tian Xian expert. Although he wasn't prepared for it, but a hit is a hit, this fact cannot be denied. Chapter 129. Recalling the day when he and Jun Wui killed people in the hall of Huanghua, June Moxie frowned thoughtfully. If it was in his previous life, he would only be at the level of a Ho Tian warrior. But in this world, the strict classification of Xian Qi gave June Moxie a subtle feeling that there was no comparison. The Xian Qi in this world, from the 1st grade to the 9th grade, then from the silver grade to the immortal grade. Every grade was clearly defined. However, the art of unlocking heaven's fortune that he cultivated, aside from the mysterious abilities, compared to the Xian Qi of this world in terms of pure strength, there seemed to be something wrong. In fact, it was very wrong. His cultivation, according to this world's standards, was equivalent to directly abandoning the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level Xian Qi, and starting from the 4th level. After cultivating for such a long time, in terms of pure strength, he should not be able to match a silver-level Xian Qi. But if he were to face a silver-level Xian Qi, even if it was a peak silver-level Xian Qi, he was confident that he could easily kill it. Looking at this rate of progress, when the 1st level of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune reaches completion, it should be the peak silver-level Xian Qi of this world breaking through to the gold level. What if he breaks through to the 2nd level? What would be the comparison? Moreover, if the Xian Qi cultivation in this world could be accelerated with the help of external forces, then would the art of unlocking heaven's fortune be able to do the same? If it was possible, then what kind of things would be beneficial to his cultivation? Thinking of this, June Moxie suddenly felt that he had gone out too little. He should go out more often. After all, the world in front of him was very different from his original world. Grandpa June was not at home, so June Moxie called 2 guards to accompany him. After all, it was the second prince who had invited him to the banquet. At this time, the second prince would not be able to protect him. If he had any malicious intentions towards him, it would be the same as shooting himself in the foot. Therefore, there was absolutely no risk. Guan Qinghan and Jun Dashao arrived at Grandpa Jun's study almost at the same time. Naturally, they did not find anything. Still angry, they simply took a detour and went to look for the third uncle, Jun Wui. Jun Wui had just issued the family head's order, dispatching absolutely reliable men to rescue the fleeing boys and girls. This was the first time that Third Master Jun had exercised his authority after receiving the family head's order from Grandpa Jun. However, Third Master Jun did not have the time to savor the wonderful taste of power. Instead, he sat on the useless wheelchair and carefully thought about the words that Jun Moxie had said along the way. He also thought about the superb concealment skills and counter-tracking strategies that Jun Moxie had displayed along the way. The more he thought about it, the more he felt the taste was boundless. Every action that Jun Sun Shao had made, every action that he had taken, every word that he had said, seemed to contain a deep meaning. Every time he thought about it, he would have a different experience. Thinking back to Jun Moxie's words, training is my instinct. I do not need to deliberately train, but I do my best to train at all times. Every time Jun Wui thought about this sentence, his mouth would be filled with a lingering aftertaste. This sentence was not just reasonable, it was simply the truth. If one could train to such a level, what kind of perseverance would one need? But at the same time, if one could really do it, what kind of achievements would one achieve? Not to mention, the number of experts that Jun Wui had come into contact with in his life was not small. Even if there were many experts like Tian Xian, there was absolutely no one who could achieve what Jun Moxie had done. Although Jun Moxie was still young, his achievements and attitude towards martial arts had already become an immortal legend. Jun Wui let out a deep breath, his eyebrows slowly knitted together. Since Mo Xia could do it, why can't I do it myself? Am I really that useless? At the same time, Jun Wui also realized that if he wanted to rely on his own strength to take revenge and obtain the approval of Han Yanyao's family, Jun Moxie's training method might be the best choice for him. Jun Wui was deep in thought, but he did not know that with this one thought, Jun Wui had truly embarked on the path of a peak expert. Although it was only the beginning, this was because the reason why Jun Moxie was able to train on his own was because the internal energy that he had cultivated in his previous life and the art of unlocking heaven's fortune were special things that were different from this world's Xian Qi. Naturally, those Xian Qi could follow the flow of his blood and Qi. Moreover, Jun Moxie had the exquisite Hung Jun Pagoda to constantly supply Xian Qi to help him train, so it was actually not difficult to achieve this. But now, Jun Wui was indulging in the wildest fantasies. If he wanted to achieve this, it would undoubtedly be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Although the Xian Qi in this world had similar functions as internal energy, its nature was completely different. Xian Qi focused more on lethality, and its effect was violent. If it was allowed to run on its own, then the tragedy of Qigong deviation might occur at any time. Therefore, all the Xian Qi cultivators were very careful, and they would try not to be disturbed during their training. Now that Jun Wui had this kind of thinking, he had basically made a great change. There was a saying, daring to think is already half the battle. The sound of hurried footsteps could be heard, and it could be heard that the owner of the footsteps was brewing anger. Is it Qing Han? Why is she so angry? What happened? Jun Wui instantly determined the identity of the person. Third uncle, Jun Moxie, that little bastard, you don't even care about him. Today, he openly told me that he went to the Spirit Fog Lake's Ni Chang Pavilion. Guan Qing Han was panting with anger, but this anger was only directed at Jun Mo Xia. In this family, Guan Qing Han had a heartfelt respect for her grandfather, Jun Zhantian, and her third uncle, who was both physically and mentally disabled, but not mentally disabled. That's it? Jun Wuyi was a little surprised. Ah. That's it? That's a small matter. He has only been quiet for a few days, and now he's showing his true colors. How can he continue like this? Guan Qing Han was panting with anger. Oh, I know about this matter. I made him go. Jun Wui woke up from his contemplation and said in a light tone. You know about it? Or did you make him go? You. Guan Qinghan's eyes widened in astonishment. It seemed as if this was the first time she had met Jun Wuyi, the third master. Jun Qinghan, you misunderstood. This time, the second prince took the initiative to talk to him, and the location happened to be at the Spirit Fog Lake's Nichang Pavilion. Jun Wuyi smiled warmly. Qinghan, Mo. He is actually very sensible. Sensible. Guan Qinghan was somewhat speechless. With Jun Moxie's actions over the years, it could be said that he had committed all sorts of evil deeds. But now, Jun Wuyi had actually said that he was very sensible. What kind of words was this? I didn't understand before, but now I understand. Guan Qinghan sighed in disappointment and turned to walk away. So it's really spoiled, I really understand. Hey, there are a lot of things that you will naturally know in the future. Jun Wuyi, who was behind her, said lightly. In the blink of an eye, his mind was immersed in Xian Qi cultivation. Guan Qinghan's footsteps paused for a moment, but she still left. Jun Wuyi sighed and whispered, Come, invite the housekeeper Uncle Pang to come here. Old Pang came quickly and stood in front of Jun Wuyi in the blink of an eye. Uncle Pang, there is one thing that I need you to do for me. Jun Wuyi rubbed his face with both hands. It seemed that it was difficult for him to make a decision. What is it? Please tell me. Old Pang's face was very solemn. This was the first thing that Jun Wuyi had ordered him to do since he took over as the head of the family. No matter what it was, it had to be done to perfection. It is said that the Public Security Bureau of the capital has found a large group of, disabled children in the Huanghua Hall. They are quite pitiful. Jun Wuyi finally made up his mind. You go and see how many of them are still alive. Then bring them all to the Jun family. Our family is very big, so we don't mind having a few more people to eat. They are just children. Yes, I will do it. Old Pang said as he turned to leave. If it is possible to not expose your identity, then do not expose it. If someone tries to obstruct you, then just say that it is my intention. Jun Wuyi looked straight ahead, and his eyes gradually became sharp. Nichang Pavilion. The huge third floor was now empty, and there were only a few people sitting there. Each of them was wearing a light coat, and had a graceful and elegant expression on their faces. They were all dressed like scholars. The one in the middle had a handsome face, and was very young. His clothes were not very luxurious, but his expression and movements were naturally revealing a kind of noble and elegant aura. Second Master, it is just a trivial debauchee, Jun Moxie. There is no need for Second Master to personally come out to deal with him. Any one of us coming out to deal with him is already giving him a lot of face. Now that Second Master has personally come out to deal with him, it is a bit too much. The one who spoke was a young man in his late 20s. He was tall and had a fair complexion, just like a woman. Even in such a late autumn weather, he was still waving a folding fan in his hand. He was waving it back and forth leisurely, which was a little out of place. However, no one said anything. It was obvious that this person had some background. Brother Cheng, the Second Master, is not giving any face to Jun Mo. What Brother Cheng said is right. Jun Mo. is just a debauchee, a prodigal son of a wealthy family. As far as he's concerned, he doesn't have the slightest bit of value. However, he has a good family behind him, and a good elder. This Second Master is giving face to Jun Zhantian. An old man in his 50s or 60s sat upright on a chair as he spoke in a leisurely manner. Even if Jun Zhantian comes personally, what can he do? The young Brother Cheng chuckled and said disapprovingly, although Jun Zhantian has a high status and power, but when it comes to Xian Qi cultivation, he is at best only comparable to Tian Xian. If he really wants to kill him, I can ask my father to do it. It will be as easy as blowing off dust. As soon as these words came out, even the eyebrows of the second prince, who was sitting in the middle, unconsciously wrinkled slightly. Everyone frowned. Just Tian Xian, that's all. You make it sound so easy. How many Tianxian experts are there in the entire Tianxiang kingdom? Although your Qing family is a big family with many experts, it is still just a family of the pugilistic world. Compared to the Jun family's military strength, there is no comparison at all. Perhaps it should be said the other way around. If Jun Zhantian wanted to destroy the Qing family, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. I've realized that people really can't have a relaxed mentality. After the double monthly votes, my heart relaxed. This has directly led to my poor state of mind for the past few days. My writing speed has plummeted. I will sincerely reflect on myself. From now on, I will work hard to restore my fighting state. Charge! Fight! Fight! Therefore, I beg for monthly votes. Let me be excited again. I would rather be more tired. More tired. Chapter 130. As for your father, although no one has seen him, but according to the rumors, he is only at the level of Tianxian. Even if he were to fight Grandpa Jun one-on-one, it would be hard to tell who would emerge victorious. In fact, the chances of your father being defeated and killed are much higher. To actually say that dealing with Jun Zhantian would be as easy as blowing off dust, what shameless boasting. This man surnamed Cheng is a descendant of the Qing family of Jiangdong. His father is the current head of the Qing family. For some unknown reason, he has recently joined the second prince's side. Seeing that his family's influence is indeed extraordinary, the second prince has been rather polite to him. But this man does not look like a man, and his character is a complete idiot. Moreover, he has a very high opinion of himself, as if to say, I am number one in the world. Usually, he does not put others in his eyes. Although his cultivation is only at the peak of Silver Xian, his character is insufferably arrogant. The second prince had asked him to come today because he knows that Jun Moxie is a downright debauchee. Here, he is of the same rotten taste, even to the point of fighting poison with poison, but now that he was acting like this, he was worried that he would mess things up here. Sitting next to him is a man with a dispirited expression, his legs spread wide, his posture is quite strange. This is Lord Lu from the other day. That day, he was chasing the mysterious man and fell into the water. His crotch was struck by a bamboo pole with the force of a thunderbolt, which directly led to the birth of an official member of the imperial palace. However, it was outside of the imperial palace, outside of the imperial palace. Lord Lu regarded that incident as the greatest humiliation of his life. These days, Lord Lu has been frantically treating his something, and then frantically searching for people. But he did not see the face of the mysterious man that day. At best, he only saw a big white buttocks. Therefore, every person that was caught these days would go through the same procedure, bring them to Lord Lu, turn them around, and take off their pants for verification. Therefore, during this period of time, there was a rumor in the second prince's residence. Ever since Lord Lu was injured, his sexual preferences had changed drastically. He was only interested in butts, and it had to be the butts of young men. It seemed that the whiter the butts, the more he liked them. As a result, every time his subordinates saw Lord Lu, the first thing they would do was to anxiously cover their anus. If by any chance Lord Lu took a fancy to her well-developed buttocks, how would she conduct herself in the future? Second Master, Jun Sunshao is here. As soon as the door to the hall opened, a beautiful woman with a graceful figure walked in with a gentle smile. She was tall, had a pair of phoenix eyes and peach cheeks. Her chest was perky, and her waist was slender. When she walked, she was like a lotus leaf swaying in the wind. However, she did not show the slightest bit of frivolity. What an outstanding beauty! You're becoming more and more beautiful. The second prince smiled and praised her. A trace of intoxication flashed in his eyes. He stood up and walked out of the hall. The spirit fog lake was vast and mighty, and the clear water was flowing leisurely. On one side of the lake, on the road, a small sedan chair swayed back and forth, neither too fast nor too slow. Lady Yu-er pointed to the people walking beside the palanquin. Second Master, please take a look. These people are the old men who used to follow Jun Zhantian. From this, it can be seen that the one sitting in the palanquin is Jun Moxie. It turned out to be an extremely vulgar red palanquin. The second prince almost could not restrain his laughter. This third young master Jun's taste is truly unique and unique. He's just a typical debauchee. A cold light flashed in Lady Yu-er's eyes. She turned her head and smiled sweetly. Second Master, how about I personally receive this Jun Moxie today? You? The second prince's eyes were somewhat sullen. But when he saw the resolute look in Lady Yu-er's eyes, he helplessly sighed and said, "All right, but don't let him take advantage of you." Hee, Second Master, don't worry. Most people won't be able to take advantage of Lady Yu-er. The price to take advantage of Lady Yu-er is not cheap. Lady Yu-er smiled as she confidently watched the red palanquin come to a stop. You're right. Even I, ha. The second prince stopped talking with a faint smile on his face. Below, Jun Moxie had already drilled out of the palanquin. He landed unsteadily on the ground and staggered a little. He spat out a mouthful of saliva and sneezed. Then, he stretched his neck and massaged his waist. Shaking his arms, he tilted his head and walked up the stairs while trembling like a crab. He really has a personality. The second prince's eyes were profound as he observed Jun Moxie's every movement. I didn't think that the only descendant of the famous Jun family, Lord Zhantian, would be. Alas, I'm really disappointed. He sighed and turned around to enter the palanquin. As Jun Moxie stepped out of the palanquin, his mind was still thinking about the word that was written on his grandfather's desk, break. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile. The old man still doesn't trust me. He actually left a word like that to remind me. However, breaking isn't something that can be done so easily. It seems that the second prince is out of luck today. Jun Moxie stepped into the Ni Chang pavilion and took off his hat. He fanned himself twice and asked the attendant who came to greet him, "Where are the second prince and the others?" "The second prince and the others are waiting for you in the Hall of Ue on the 3rd floor." The attendant replied respectfully. "The Hall of Ue? Is that where a few women strip naked?" Jun Moxie chuckled and said, "The second prince really knows how to choose a good place. You've won my heart." "No, you've dug your way into my heart." Then, he walked up the stairs with a lecherous look on his face. The attendants of the second prince all fainted at the same time. Does this guy really think that the second prince invited him to visit a prostitute? Why does he have such a pig's head? The one treating today is a real prince. How could he invite someone to visit a prostitute? "Ha, Brother Moxie, it's been a long time since we last met. You've become so refined and handsome." The second prince stood up in a friendly manner, and waved at Jun Moxie in a reserved and noble manner. This. I've seen the second prince." Jun Moxie seemed to be flattered. Moxie, don't dare to accept the second prince's courtesy." "I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it." "Ha, there's no need to be so polite." The second prince hurriedly stopped Jun Moxie from bowing. He couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment as he stretched out his hand. He suddenly felt a little unhappy in his heart. This guy didn't intend to bow at all. He was just making a gesture. But before he could even stretch out his hand, he had already straightened his body. Of course, Jun Moxie wouldn't bow to him. In Jun Moxie's heart, even the emperor was not worthy of his bow. If there was a god in this world, should he worship him? Then Jun Moxie would think, what does the god in this world have to do with me? What's more, he was just a prince. In the eyes of a great assassin like Jun Moxie, he was just a corpse that could change at any time. Ha, apart from the relationship between the emperor and the minister, our two families are real friends. The second prince smiled warmly. I remember when we were young, we used to play together. But as we grew older, younger brother and I are now adults. Looking back on the past, I can't help but sigh. There was a hidden meaning in the second prince's words. He was reminding June Moxie, you and I still have a relationship between the emperor and the minister. Don't be too presumptuous. Others might care about the power of the June family, but do I care? I am the emperor and you are the minister. This prince is a notch higher than you. Yes, yes. June Moxie immediately gave an evaluation in his heart, more than vicious, narrow-minded, not willing to suffer a loss for such a small matter. You have to fight back with words. You can't be a great person. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but become absent-minded. There were still 4 people staring at him covetously, especially that greasy-haired guy in his late 20s. The way he looked at him was full of contempt and disdain. The second prince invited me, why did he bring such a hateful guy? Who do you think you are? How dare you frown at me? Younger brother, let me introduce you to a few good friends. The moment the second prince said this, the other 4 people stood up. This is my teacher, Mr. Fong Bo-wen from the Hongwen School. The second prince's attitude was very respectful. Fong Bo-wen felt very proud as he stroked his beard and looked at June Moxie. He laughed and said, this old man is just an old man, how can I compare to you young talents? Greetings, Mr. Fong Bo-wen. June Moxie looked at this old man and was a little wary. This old man was old, but he didn't look bad at all. He was calm and full of energy, and his energy was restrained. Such a person was actually the second prince's teacher. Or someone from the Hongwen School. He must have some background. This is Lu Sibo, Lord Lu. Lord Lu is skilled in both the pen and the sword. He is a rare talent. The second prince smiled. June Mo Xia sized up this Lord Lu who had caused him to run around naked, and had nearly plucked out half of his bird feathers. Then, he asked with a playful expression, Lord Lu's posture is quite different from the others. TSK, look at how tall and straight you are. You're truly a bold and decisive man. Lu Sibo didn't expect that June Moxie's first words would expose his scars. Lu Sibo's face turned red as he stood in front of June Moxie with his legs wide apart, afraid that he would accidentally touch his scars. Of course, he was very different from the others. The June family's third young master is also very different. He is much more handsome than the others. Lu Sibo clenched his teeth and cupped his hands. You can see it too. I am also puzzled. Why is he so handsome? He is so handsome that there is no justice in this world. He is so handsome that it makes people jealous. He is a bosom friend and bosom friend. I'll treat you to a drink some other day. June Mo Xia coquettishly combed his hair, and shook his head in a very flashy manner. He had shamelessly taken Lu Sibo's sarcasm as a compliment, and even accepted it all. Everyone was speechless. I have never seen such a narcissist. Lord Lu was even more depressed. Who would want to be bosom friends and bosom friends with you? June Sunshao's reputation is well deserved. Meeting you in person is better than hearing about you. I admire you. Ha. I am Qing De Chao. Young Master Qing squeezed out an arrogant smile when he saw that June Moxie was looking at him. He cupped his hands in a perfunctory manner, and didn't forget to stab June Dashao with a few words. Qing De Chao. I have never heard of him. June Moxie turned his head, and showed him the back of his head. This guy is very arrogant. Motherfucker. He has been giving me face since the beginning. And he even dared to stab me. Do you think I can't tell? Who do you think you are, you bastard? Chapter 131. Qing Dachao's small face turned deathly white when he heard Jun Dashao's words. His small face had turned even paler than before. Haha, third young master, this is the young master of the Qing family. It's inevitable that young master Jun is not familiar with him. Fang Bo Wen's eyes hadn't left Jun Mo Xie since the moment he had entered the room. He had been observing his every movement, his every word, and his every expression. Qing Dachao, is it? Jun Moxie narrowed his eyes and looked at him. Qing Dachao. Qing Dachao's whole body trembled as he clenched his teeth and said, Young Master Jun, I've long heard of the Jun family's great reputation. Your father's reputation is like a thunderclap piercing through my ears. Qing Dachao's words were quite tricky. He was clearly ridiculing Jun Moxie for having been born without any proper upbringing. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. These words had not only exposed Jun Dashao's scars, but had also greatly offended the entire Jun family. The second prince started to sweat profusely. This young Master Cheng was simply a troublemaker. He had directly pushed the entire Jun family to the opposite side. Even if Jun Moxie was a debauchee, he wouldn't be able to understand the meaning behind his words. It was obvious that the gods and Buddhas weren't paying attention to the second prince's prayers. Hitman Jun snorted and said, So it turns out to be the young master of the Qing family. I've been disrespectful. Today is the first time that we've met. Please allow me to first greet you, haha. Jun Moxie's tone was heavy as he dragged out his words. The so-called pointing at a bald man and calling him a monk's name was probably nothing more than this. This was clearly a shrew cursing in the streets. Moreover, he was even greeting the young master's father. How can you be so shameless? The so-called Tianxiang City's #1 debauchee has opened everyone's eyes today. What does it mean to know someone by reputation? Qing Dachao was so angry that his hands and feet turned ice cold. His pale face turned ashen. In the face of Jun Moxie, who was born into a noble family, and whose personality was similar to that of a local ruffian, Qing Dachao's arrogance was simply useless. Moreover, Qing Dachao's family wasn't small, and could be considered as a tyrant, but in the end, it was still just a small Xian Qi family, and nothing more. Compared to the Jun family, which was a super prominent political and military family, Qing Dachao's family was simply not worth mentioning. This was also the main reason why the second prince and the others hadn't taken young Master Cheng's vow of exterminating the Jun family seriously. They were like frogs in a well looking at the sky. They only knew the circumference of their own well. How could they know the vastness of the world? In other words, no matter how hedonistic Jun Moxie was, no matter how unbearable. You're just an insignificant Qing Dachao. Young Master Qing doesn't have the qualifications to challenge Jun Mo Xie. Moreover, you shouldn't have blurted out insults to your ancestors. You should have been exterminating your entire family. Young Master Cheng has always been arrogant. So, he blurted out those words. And now, Jun Moxie was making a naked counterattack, and wasn't even trying to hide it. If Qing Dachao were to continue his insults, then everyone could imagine that the Jun family's army would immediately descend upon the Qing family and exterminate them. Therefore, even if Jun Moxie didn't have any misgivings, Qing Dachao absolutely couldn't. However, this young Master Cheng wasn't a complete idiot. Therefore, even though he had been humiliated by Jun Moxie, he didn't dare to retaliate. Only the pretty boy was angered to the point that his whole body was trembling. The others looked on with cold eyes. However, they were secretly rejoicing in his misfortune. What kind of person is Jun Moxie? Even if he's a hedonistic debauchee, he's still the only descendant of the Jun family's third generation. How can a small Qing family afford to provoke him? This guy deliberately provoked Jun Moxie from the very beginning. Now that he's being treated like this, he's only seeking his own humiliation. At this moment, a fragrant wind lingered in the air. Then, A soft and beautiful voice sounded out, "Honored guests, Lady Yu-er has specially brought her sisters here to liven things up." Then, 5 or 6 women gracefully walked in. Each one of them was young and beautiful, and each of them was bashful and timid. The men in the room couldn't help but feel their blood boil. With the appearance of so many beautiful women, Jun Moxie's arrogant and despotic attitude disappeared. His eyes were fixated on the beautiful woman in the middle of the room, and his mouth was wide open. A thread of transparent silk was dripping from his mouth, but he didn't notice it. The person he was looking at was none other than Lady Yu-er. The reason why Jun Moxie had come to the Ni Chang Pavilion was because of her. Otherwise, why would he have agreed to the second prince's invitation when all 3 princes had invited him? Now that she had appeared in front of him, how could Jun Moxie let go of such an opportunity? Everyone looked at his pig-like appearance, and couldn't help but despise him in their hearts. What kind of demeanor was this? This Lady Yu-er may be outstanding, but she's still a brothel girl, and will never be able to reach the next level. Could it be that this debauchee Jun wants to create a world-famous scandal? The second prince furrowed his brows. It was no secret that he had feelings for Yu-er. However, Yu-er had other thoughts in her heart. From beginning to end, she refused to leave his side. This made the second prince's heart itch. With his status, he naturally could not marry her. In fact, it was impossible for him to take her as a concubine. However, in his heart, he had long regarded Yu-er as his forbidden descendant. A transparent pearl curtain separated the 2 sides of the room, and Lady Yu-er smiled gently as she walked over to the curtain and sat down. Her fingers plucked the strings, and the sound of the zither echoed in the room, adding a touch of elegance to the banquet. The dishes were quickly served, and the second prince and Jun Moxie didn't seem to hear anything. Instead, Jun Dashao's eyes were fixated on Lady Yu-er, who was playing the zither. The second prince and the others felt bored. Everyone already knew that Jun Moxie was a debauchee, a complete debauchee. So, his actions were bound to be preposterous. This was reasonable and expected. But, no one had thought that this person would actually be so outrageous. Jun Moxie drooled as he agreed with the second prince's comment, although the major families in the capital have formed their own families, but if you look closely, you'll find that these families have already formed an offensive and defensive circle. Jun Moxie nodded in agreement, not bad, not bad. Then, Fang Bo-wen, Lu Si-bo, and the others began to beat around the bush, and tried to demonstrate the second prince's strength and desire for the Jun family. Although their intentions weren't obvious, but the underlying meaning was clear enough for even a pig to understand. Moreover, Lu Si-bo and Ching De Chao had given Jun Moxie a vivid lesson about the second prince's courteous attitude. In fact, they had even taught him a very vivid lesson. In fact, he believed that even the textbook examples wouldn't be able to match up to them. Jun Dashao acted as if he was an expert, and listened attentively no matter what was being said. He actively participated in the discussion, and his attitude was extremely serious. Later on, he was the only one speaking non-stop, but the words he said didn't seem to match the donkey's lips or the horse's mouth, and left everyone speechless. When it came to political strategy, the art of governance, and how to benefit the people, Fang Bo-wen accidentally said, "The strength of the people and the strength of the country is not the same as the wealth of the people." This meant that everything needed to be supported by a strong financial force. Everyone agreed with this statement. However, this one sentence had caused Jun Moxie to suddenly come up with many fallacies. His eloquent speech was endless. In the end, he had even deviated from the main topic and started to talk nonsense. Money, is a good thing. What Lord Fang said is very good, haha, speaking of gambling, haha, this young master and Fatty Tang were afraid of disturbing the people, so we disguised ourselves and carefully entered the Golden Shuttle Casino. That day, we gambled thrillingly, and this young master's title of God of Gamblers also became famous that day. Henceforth, there would be no more opponents, it would be as lonely as snow. As the saying goes, it's lonely at the top. This was probably the meaning. Being invincible is indeed the loneliest. June Moxie proudly looked at everyone with disdain, and then put down his chopsticks, stood up, and put one foot on the chair, and gestured with his two hands. There are also fighting beasts, fighting snakes, fighting dogs, fighting cocks. Do you know, when the cocks are fighting, their feathers will stand up. June Moxie talked non-stop, and his spittle flew in all directions. Talking about this, he was a true expert. In the previous Mosie's memory, there was nothing special about him, but when it came to these debauches, he was definitely an expert. Who could stand up to this small test of his skill? Although that young Master Cheng also had a bit of a debauchee aura, he was too focused on climbing up, and had long thrown the small path of debauches to the back of his mind. Even if he forced himself to do so, he was still too far away from Jun Dashao's level. How could he even be compared? For a moment, everyone looked askance, and stared at Jun Dashao's performance, as if they had been struck by lightning. Everyone was thinking in their hearts, just you and Tang Yuan, you two still need to disguise yourselves. With Fatty Tang's valiant physique, no matter how much he tried to disguise himself, anyone would be able to recognize him with a single glance. In fact, it would be extremely difficult to find a person with a bigger belly than him in the entire Xian continent. There was simply no one who could match him. With the two of you going, who would dare to win your money? Of course, he would become the god of gamblers, but we didn't seem to be talking about this just now. Then, where were we? Everyone felt dizzy. Oh my god, why did we go off topic again? Second Prince was already regretting to death in his heart. If he had known that this would be the result, why would he have spent so much effort? Such a coward actually took up so much of my energy. What is this? But I can't get anything out of it. There wasn't even a single accurate sentence, and this was the most depressing thing. Chapter 132. Old Man Fong was keenly aware that Jun Moxie always chose to interrupt the conversation when everyone was talking about the Jun family's strength, or when they were trying to recruit Jun Moxie. Then, Jun Moxie would suddenly come out of nowhere and spout nonsense, making everyone feel sick to their stomachs. Then, intentionally or unintentionally, the topic would pass. Although he's a debauchee, he's not an ordinary person. Interesting. Fong Bo-wen shook his head and thought to himself. It seems like the second prince is destined to return empty-handed today. However, was Jun Moxie's method instructed by his family, or did he decide on his own? This was a difficult question to answer. But looking at the current situation, it didn't matter if the Jun family didn't turn to the other two. As long as they didn't turn to the other two, then there wouldn't be a problem. Second prince, today, this... is there anything else besides drinking? We've had enough drinking, shouldn't we do something else? Jun Moxie's face was full of wretched smiles, making people want to step on his face. The most annoying thing about this guy was that he had changed the way he addressed the second prince 3 times. Second prince, second prince, second prince. It really made people feel like they were at home. Originally, there were other programs, but after seeing Jun Moxie's behavior, the second prince had already arranged for it to be cancelled. And, it's better to part ways with this guy as soon as possible. In less than a meal's time, he was so angry that he was about to vomit blood, so depressed that he was speechless, and despised him to the point that his brain short-circuited. Seeing that everyone had finally given up on him, Jun Moxie secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He stood up with a grin and waddled over to Lady Yu Er, who was playing the zither behind the curtain. Jun Moxie's main purpose for coming here was her. How could he let her go? A little girl like you dares to say that you want to exterminate my Jun family? Thinking back to Lady Yu Er's bitter hatred towards him and the Jun family that night, Jun Mosie's heart was filled with dread. This woman was not only witty, but she was also highly skilled in martial arts. Although it seemed like she was relying on the second prince, it was clear that she had not completely thrown herself into the second prince's arms. A woman who could protect her chastity in front of a prince. This statement seemed a little ridiculous, but from this point, it could be seen that this woman's intentions were not small. Jun Moxie did not doubt that this woman had ulterior motives. He even suspected that there was a mysterious force behind this woman. Therefore, he might have to make a deal today that would alert the enemy. Only by sticking your head out would you have a target. Who would have the patience to compete with an enemy who was hiding in the dark? The Jun family's strength was slowly developing at the moment. So, they needed to have some goals in order to grow faster. He and the Jun family would be in a very passive position if he allowed her to continue to lie dormant and continue to spy on the Jun family's weakness. But, if he were to kill her, then he would directly cut off this line of communication. This would make the enemy completely hidden in the dark, and the situation would become even more unfavorable. Lady Yu is very beautiful, he. Jun Moxie did not hide his eyes as he sized up Yu suddenly felt an indescribable discomfort throughout her body. Leng looked at him and said, "Young Master Jun, please conduct yourself with dignity." No need. This young master's greatest advantage is that his body is as light as a swallow. Tang Yuan, that fatty, is the one who should conduct himself with dignity. Jun Moxie laughed as he lifted the curtain and rushed in. Young Master Jun, you may be a prostitute, but she sells her skills and not her body. Please understand. Yu said in a cold voice. If I don't pay after I'm done, then it won't count as a sale. This young master thanks you for your kind reminder. Jun Dashao continued to move closer to Yu with a calm face. By now, anyone could see that this debauchee Jun Moxie had taken a fancy to Lady Yu and it was very likely that he would force himself on her, or even perform a reality show. This was not a rare occurrence for the famous debauchee of the Jun family. But the biggest question was, who was Lady Yu? The host of this banquet, the second prince, had taken a fancy to her. Unfortunately, Jun Moxie did not know about this matter, and the second prince could not make this matter public. This was going to be a big deal. No one had expected that this kind of thing would happen when they had come out for a meal with the Jun family's third young master, whom they had never met in 100 years. Is he still the son of an aristocratic family? What is this? If Yu rashly refuses this debauchee, then this guy will immediately retaliate. How can a trivial Ni Chang pavilion withstand the Jun family's revenge? But if we don't refuse, are we going to let this bastard take advantage of us? Everyone suddenly looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do at this moment. The second prince's face sank as he said, "Third young master, Lady Yu is a master of music theory, and has always been noble and pure. This is the first time we've met, so please don't make things difficult for this lady." The way he addressed the second prince had changed from younger brother to third young master. Difficult? How can it be difficult? What kind of noble and pure business do you think she is? Ha, if this young master doesn't make things difficult for her, then what will she eat and drink? Jun Moxie had obviously drunk too much, and hadn't heard anything. Instead, he was looking at Lady Yu behind the curtain with great interest. Lady Yu fiercely glared at him, "Young Master Jun, it's better to treat a woman like a gentleman." Gentleman? Ha, this is a brothel. Do you know what a brothel is? A brothel. Do you understand? You want to look for a gentleman in a brothel? What a joke. A brothel is a place for hoodlums. This young master has never been a gentleman, I'm a hoodlum. So what? Jun Moxie shouted proudly, as if he was proud of his hoodlum status. Yue was angered to the point she gritted her teeth tightly, and she was practically unable to restrain her temper and wanted to kill this profligate young master on the spot. Truly too hateful. With your character, even if all the men in this world were to die, this young lady still wouldn't take a fancy to you. But when she saw the second prince's ashen face through the bead curtain, an idea came to her mind. Second master, please save me. Lady Yu ran out of the curtain in a panic, and ran towards the second prince. Although she was staggering, her speed was extremely fast. She believed that even an ordinary 9th-level master would not be able to stop her. But she didn't expect that Jun Mo's speed would suddenly increase as well. In a flash, he opened his arms wide and pulled a delicate body into his embrace. Laughing loudly, he said, "Beauties always say one thing but mean another. You say you don't want it, but you still take the initiative to throw yourself into my arms." Lady Yu didn't expect that the rumored Jun Moxie, whose Xian Qi had been crippled, would be able to catch her. Her previous flash seemed ordinary, but in fact, she had used a very high level of agility. But Jun Moxie seemed to have a bright mind, and in the moment of her flash, he was already standing in front of her, and the two almost bumped into each other. In the eyes of an outsider, it was as if she had thrown herself into his arms. Was it a coincidence? But isn't it too much of a coincidence? Lady Yu was so ashamed and angry that she almost fainted. Everyone looked at each other in disbelief. In public, and in front of a prince, what kind of behavior was this? Jun Moxie. Let go of Lady Yu, Qing De Chao roared and rushed forward. Lady Yu took the opportunity to struggle free from Jun Moxie's embrace. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears of shame and anger, and she didn't even think about it as she waved her palm towards Jun Moxie's face. In Lady Yu's mind, with her martial arts cultivation, and the fact that Jun Moxie didn't have any Xian Qi in his body, there was no way that she wouldn't be able to hit him. Pa! A crisp sound of a slap resounded, and everyone was stunned. Lady Yu's slap had not only failed to land on Jun Mo's, but had instead landed a solid slap on her face. Suddenly, a red handprint could be seen on her snow-white face, swelling up at a speed visible to the naked eye, and her hair was also disheveled. For a moment, she didn't know how to react, and fell to the ground in a daze. Smelly whore, you only know how to be obedient, you have no professional ethics. You dare to hit me? You've really gone against the heavens. Jun Moxie angrily cursed as he rushed forward in a threatening manner. He lifted his foot to kick again, but was stopped by a man who stood in front of him. It was Qing De Chao, third young master Jun. Why are you so angry with a mere brothel girl? Qing De Chao's face had become somewhat distorted, and it seemed that Jun Moxie was becoming more and more unpleasant to the eye. Although he was trying to dissuade Jun Moxie, his heart was itching to strangle him. Get lost. I'm going to beat this little whore to death today. She dares to pretend to be virtuous in front of me. She must be blind. Jun Moxie's anger soared to the heavens as he shouted. Jun Moxie, you must understand. Today is the second prince's banquet, and His Royal Highness is sitting nearby. Don't tell me that you don't want to give His Royal Highness face. Chapter 133. Don't be presumptuous. Miss Yu is. Qing De Chao suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, and he immediately shut his mouth. Is? What is she? Jun Moxie laughed presumptuously as the corners of his mouth twitched. She's selling her skills in a brothel, but not her body. Who is she trying to fool? I'm going to play with her today. She's pretending to be a virgin in front of me even though she's in a brothel. The reputation of a noble family has been ruined by people like you. Qing De Chao said in a tone of infinite contempt, Jun Mo's, I loathe and despise you to the extreme. Qing De Chao suddenly felt a sense of pride at this moment. In the past, people had always said that he was a disgrace to the aristocratic family. But today, compared to Jun Moxie, he felt as if he was shining brightly. Qing De Fu *K. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're qualified to talk about me? Do you believe that I won't make your Qing family disappear in an instant if you speak another word? Jun Mo's was extremely savage. He raised his neck and squinted his eyes. Go back to your mother's house and drink milk. Qing De Chao's hands trembled as he pointed at Jun Moxie. His eyes turned red as he pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword. Clang! The sword was unsheathed by 3 inches, and a cold light radiated in all directions. Jun Moxie. The second prince stood up with a sullen face. You're drunk. You'd better go back to your residence. I haven't drunk much wine, so how can I be drunk? Jun Moxie snorted as he stiffened his neck. He didn't buy it. I'm waiting for this sissy to pull out his sword and cut me in half. I said you're drunk, so you're drunk, the second prince said in a stern voice. He finally couldn't hold back any longer. Fang Bo-wen hastily stepped forward, and gently pressed the second prince's hand. Jun Moxie raised his eyes, and the two of them looked at each other in the air. They stared at each other for a while, and then the corners of their mouths crooked as they smiled. Since the second prince says that I'm drunk, then I'm drunk. Hee hee. I haven't even touched a drop of wine and I'm already drunk. Ha ha ha. What a joke. Laughing out loud, he picked up a wine cup and smashed it beside Lady Yu. The crisp sound caused everyone to look over, and their eyebrows twitched. Jun Moxie pointed a finger at Lady Yu and said fiercely, little slut, with his second highness here today, I will let you go for the time being. However, I will come and settle the score with you at any time. Humph, then, he turned his head, and smiled evilly as he approached Qing De Chao. Then, he slowly extended his hand, and patted Qing De Chao's face with 2 crisp and clear sounds. Jun Mo Xia smiled and said, do you want to kill me? You really want to, don't you? Ha ha ha, Qing De Chao, you can't kill someone if you draw your sword halfway. You, be more obedient in the future, understand? He turned his head, and put on a fake smile. Then, he waved his hand as if he was waving away a speck of dust in front of his eyes. Then, he turned around and swaggered away. The prince had invited him to a banquet, and he had made a scene there. He had taken advantage of others, and then he had beaten them. Then, the prince had come forward to plead for leniency, and he had threatened to retaliate. He had beaten the prince, and had cursed Qing De Chao. His words had been rude and vulgar. Jun Moxie could be said to be extremely arrogant today, and he had truly lived up to his reputation as Tian Xiang's #1 debauchee. Jun Moxie went downstairs, and entered the palanquin. Surprisingly, there were 2 other black-clothed men hidden inside the palanquin. Jun Moxie spoke in a low and urgent tone, after I leave, you must pay close attention to the movements of the Ni Chang Pavilion. After the second prince and the others leave, one of you will be responsible for monitoring the communication birds in the sky, and the other will pay attention to the people coming in and out of the pavilion. You must not slack off. The 2 men nodded in unison. The palanquin shook, and the young Master Jun returned home. Although he hadn't gained much from this trip, it could be said that he had made a splendid achievement. On the one hand, he had made the second prince suffer a loss, and on the other hand, he had humiliated Lady Yu. This trip had definitely not been in vain. Jun Moxie knew that although Lady Yu was residing in the Ni Chang Pavilion, she wasn't a prostitute. However, the words that Jun Moxie had spoken to her were something that even a professional prostitute wouldn't be able to tolerate, let alone a Xian Qi expert in disguise. Not to mention the fact that this impersonator was a virgin. Therefore, Jun Moxie was certain that Lady Yu would definitely make a move. This was exactly what Jun Moxie was hoping for. The only advantage that he had was that Jun Moxie had overheard the conversation between Lady Yu and Lord Lu, and had already determined the identity of this enemy. However, Lady Yu didn't know that Jun Moxie had already locked onto her. Therefore, as long as she was still a person and not a pile of dirt, she would certainly want to retaliate after suffering such humiliation. The third advantage was that the humiliation of Lady Yu had already sowed the seeds of division between the second prince and Lady Yu. The second prince was indecisive and lacked a majestic aura, which was why Lady Yu was so disappointed in him. If a man couldn't even protect the woman he wanted to pursue, then what kind of man could he be? Especially since this man clearly had the power to protect her, but didn't do anything. This was even more disappointing. If June Moxie had been in the second prince's shoes, he would have surely shouted, "This is my woman." First, we have to settle the matter. However, the second prince didn't dare to do so, at least he didn't dare to shout it out loud. This was why June Moxie looked down on him. Wealth, glory, and the status of a prince, were they really that important? In fact, this was also the blind spot of the hitman June. Not every man would fly into a rage for a woman, and not everyone would be indifferent to wealth, glory, and splendor. In fact, most people in this world wouldn't be able to escape. Especially a prince who had the potential to become a prince. As for his actions today, although it was a bit excessive for a woman like Lady Yu, but June Moxie didn't feel the least bit apologetic in his heart. When dealing with an enemy, one naturally has to resort to extreme measures. Since you plan to destroy my family, and even scheme to deal with me, then shouldn't I have scolded you? This young master's conscience is clear. Gaga. Lady Yu watched as June Moxie's palanquin gradually disappeared into the distance, and her tender body couldn't help but tremble. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her eyes were filled with a murderous look. The second prince walked up to her, but before he could say anything, she snorted heavily, turned around, and walked away. The second prince stood there in a daze, his hands still in the same position as before, and the expression on his face fluctuated. Who would have thought that the purpose of this banquet was to recruit June Moxie, but June Moxie would actually be so arrogant. He didn't even give face to a dignified prince. June Moxie swaggered off, and completely betrayed the second prince's good intentions. Moreover, he didn't even try to hide it, it was equivalent to breaking off relations with the second prince. This was tantamount to giving the second prince a resounding slap in the face. Ever since the second prince was born, this was the first time he'd been humiliated in such a way. His hatred for June Moxie had reached its peak. He stood there quietly, motionless, and the other three people didn't even dare to breathe loudly. After a long time, the sky turned dark, and the second prince finally flicked his sleeves, and said in a low voice, "Let's go." Qingda Chao came forward, and said, "Your Highness, this June Moxie was so rude today. Should I send 2 men to teach him a lesson? I'll help your Highness vent his anger, even if it means taking his life. Are you a pig?" The second prince suddenly turned his head, his eyes were bloodshot. "He knows that I can't touch him. That's why he dared to be so domineering today. But, it's also a fact that I don't dare to touch him. Otherwise, how would June Moxie have the guts to contradict me? Break off relations today, and teach him a lesson tomorrow? Assassinate him? Is your brain filled with tofu dregs? Don't talk about whether or not you have the ability to touch him. Even if June Moxie were to fall on the road, we would be the biggest suspects." June Zhantian had washed the capital with blood a few days ago, and he had clearly expressed his attitude. "Don't tell me that you'll only be happy if that old man washes my palace with blood? Are you thinking that I'm not annoying enough?" His attempt at flattery had backfired, and he was kicked away. Qingda Chao awkwardly coughed twice, and then retracted his head, and didn't say another word. However, he was secretly cursing in his heart, "You're a dignified prince, and yet you're being scolded by your own minister's grandson like a turtle's grandson. But, you don't even dare to vent your anger on him. Instead, you vent your anger on me." "This must be June Zhantian's intention," Fang Bowen slowly said as he stroked his beard. June Moxie's actions today were clearly deliberate. In other words, he had already prepared to break off relations with your Highness before he came here. Why do you say that?" the second prince asked as he pondered over it. The June family has always been unwilling to participate in the nation's politics. They've always been immersed in the military, and they've always kept a distance from the three princes. They've always stood on the sidelines, and it's clear that they won't participate in these muddy waters. This is a good strategy to protect their lives. However, Jun Zhantian had gathered his troops in the capital a few days ago, and massacred the minister's residences. This shows that the Jun family is extremely powerful. And, it doesn't matter which of the three princes obtains this power, they'll be able to defeat the other two princes, and take over the nation. Since we can see this, the other two princes must have seen it as well. Therefore, I'm afraid that all three princes have the same idea. However, Jun Zhantian isn't willing to bet on any one of them, and he has no intention of participating. Even if he reveals the Jun family's strength, he would rather provoke His Majesty than participate. Under these circumstances, there's only one way to maintain his strength and get out of these muddy waters. The second prince gradually understood, break off relations with me? No. It should be to break off relations with all three princes. After revealing such a strong strength, this is the only way to reassure His Majesty. At least, before Jun Zhantian passes away, the Jun family will not fall. In other words, of the three princes who invited Jun Moxie to the banquet today, no matter which one Jun Moxie went to, they all fell out with each other. Your Highness, you're just a little more unlucky than the other two princes. Coincidentally, Jun Moxie chose to come to our side. Kill the chicken to warn the monkeys? The second prince suddenly understood. He couldn't help but grit his teeth. Jun Moxie, that son of a bitch, he actually treated this prince like a chicken. Chapter 134. But this way, the other two princes will have some misgivings and won't dare to invite the Jun family again. This way, the Jun family will be able to enjoy a period of peace. In my opinion, this plan was Jun Zhantian's idea. However, there is still a very troublesome problem that makes me feel helpless. Fang Bowen frowned and sighed. Please enlighten me. The second prince seemed to have guessed what he was going to say, and his face became even more gloomy. Your Highness also mentioned this matter earlier. Fang Bowen sighed. In this way, everyone will know that Jun Mo Xia and Your Highness have a falling out. Moreover, he was arrogant and despotic in front of everyone, not giving Your Highness any face. If Jun Mo Xia is harmed during this period of time, or if someone, then the biggest suspect will undoubtedly be Your Highness. And I believe that the first and third princes will not let go of this opportunity to frame you. What are you talking about? The second prince suddenly became angry. Do I still have to send people to protect him after being humiliated by him? That depends on Your Highness's choice. If Your Highness is not afraid of Jun Zhantian, then you don't have to worry about him. Fang Bowen said slowly. The second prince was speechless. Not afraid? That was a lie. Just a few days ago, over 1,000 heads fell to the ground at the same time. Jun Zhantian's anger had caused him to clear almost a third of the imperial court. If he was forced into a corner, it would not be impossible for him to wreak havoc in the royal palace. Bastard! Bastard! The second prince raised his leg and kicked the pebble in front of him far away, as if that pebble was Jun Mo Xia. So much trouble because of a simple meal? The second prince was indignant. Some people really can't be provoked. This Jun Moxie is the legendary Jinx. Just like me, not only did I lose face, I didn't get anything, and because of Jun Mo Xia, I even offended Lady Yu. All of this is really, why bother? On the roof of the Ni Chang pavilion, a delicate figure watched the second prince and his entourage leave. Her pretty face was as cold as ice. In that kind of situation, you actually still had misgivings and didn't step forward bravely. After I was humiliated by Jun Mo Xia, you only said a few words in a calm and indifferent manner. You're obviously afraid that I'll affect your reputation. Since that's the case, why did you provoke me in the first place? How could I, Chu Lingyue, be a woman in the dark for my entire life? A cold light flashed in Lady Yu's eyes as she gritted her teeth. Since you're afraid of Jun Zhantian's military forces, then do you think I'll force you to act? Jun Moxie. Today, I will make sure that you die without a burial ground for such a great humiliation. As the night deepened, Lady Yu loosened her grip and a messenger pigeon flew up into the sky. In the darkness of the distance, a black silhouette quietly flew out like a bolt of lightning. After a few feet, the silhouette suddenly jumped onto the roof with a schwa sound, and cast a large black net over the roof. In fact, it almost blended in with the darkness of the night. The messenger pigeon that had just taken off fell into the net in the blink of an eye. The black-robed man stooped, quickly turned around, and disappeared into the darkness. Late at night, in the second prince's residence, a black messenger pigeon spread its wings and flew into the night sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In front of the window, Ching De Chao grinned and muttered, "Jun Moxie, I don't care if you're a descendant of the Jun family, but since you dared to insult me today, you shouldn't exist in this world anymore. If I kill you today, everyone will think that it was the work of the three princes. Who will suspect my Qing family? Moreover, the one who killed you isn't a member of my Qing family, he he he. As the saying goes, even a wise man will make a mistake. Moreover, Jun Dashao is only the king of assassins, he's not a wise man." Jun Moxie had overlooked one thing. He hadn't expected that the young master of the Qing family would be so narrow-minded. He had a foothold at the second prince's side, and had an illustrious family background. How will everything develop in the future? Jun Moxie was sitting unsteadily in the palanquin. He was very depressed. He had always been accustomed to walking on his feet. So, sitting in such a high-class thing was simply torture for him. Sitting in a palanquin wasn't a good thing for a king of assassins like him. The palanquin trembled and fluctuated between high and low. It was really hard for these ancient people. Sitting in a palanquin was a symbol of status. It seemed that all the civil officials, regardless of whether they were loyal or corrupt, wouldn't be able to walk without a palanquin. What's so good about this broken thing? Damn, what if they had high blood pressure or heart disease? Jun Dashao felt that sitting in a palanquin was a shortcut to the king of hell. He endured for a while, hoping to arrive at the Jun family's residence. But the speed of the palanquin was really too slow. After swaying for a long time, they still hadn't arrived. Jun Dashao finally couldn't help but order the palanquin to stop. Suddenly, a white thing jumped into the palanquin with a whoosh sound. It was excitedly whining and a soft little head burrowed into his arms. Jun Moxie was quick to react. He grabbed it by the neck and lifted it up in front of him. It was Dugu Xiaoyi's high-rank Xian beast, the cub of the iron-winged leopard. Looking at the small body in his hands, Jun Moxie felt it was incredible. It's so small, how can it be so fast? How fast will it be when it grows up? He had underestimated this little thing before. It was indeed a high-rank Xian beast. Junior Leopard was lifted up by Jun Mo by the back of its neck, and its limbs were suddenly unable to move. It whimpered as it looked at Jun Mo with a pair of beautiful big eyes. It couldn't understand why this human, who it had a very good impression of, was so rude to it every time. Seeing it, Jun Moxie instantly thought that Dugu Xiaoyi was probably not far away. Otherwise, how could this little guy smell his scent? Jun Mo extended his finger and pointed at Junior Leopard's soft little nose. Then, he fiercely whispered, "Please, you don't need to follow me anymore. If you continue to follow me, then that fierce master of yours will cause trouble for me. Then, her whole family will cause trouble for me. Do you understand? Please do as you please." Originally, he intended to scare Junior Leopard away. Somehow, it turned into a plea for mercy. Although the cub was a high-rank Xian beast and understood human nature, it didn't seem to understand Jun Moxie's profound and meaningful words. It tilted its head and looked at Jun Dashao in confusion. With a twist of its waist, it struggled out of his hands and whined happily. Jun Dashao saw that there was a chance. Was the little thing willing to leave? Unexpectedly, the little thing burrowed into his arms with a schwa sound. It greedily breathed in and out. Its little head arched back and forth, resting comfortably on his chest. Its rosy little mouth opened and yawned. Its beautiful big eyes slowly narrowed. It was actually about to fall asleep, so it didn't want to leave. It just felt that my hands weren't as comfortable as my chest. Bah, how could I say this? I'm a man, what's so comfortable about my chest? I'm so depressed. Little White, where did you go, Little White? Little White. A clear and melodious voice came from outside. It sounded very anxious and there were some signs that it was about to cry. Dugu Xiaoyi had always treated this little thing as a treasure. Now that it suddenly disappeared, it was natural that her mind would be in a mess. Jun Moxie sighed. What was fate? Wasn't this the legendary fate? But it seemed that this was an ill-fated fate. Even if he couldn't meet a person, meeting a cub would be the same. A Lengleng's voice came from the front of the sedan chair, the person inside, please come out. The voice was indifferent, with a sense of loneliness and weariness. It turned out to be Yi Guhan. With his eyesight as an expert, Tian Xian could naturally see that Jun Moxie had suddenly jumped into Jun Moxie's sedan chair at an extremely high speed without any warning. Although there was no reason for the little thing to do so, there was no doubt that it had entered the sedan chair. After a long while, Jun Moxie's lazy and helpless voice came out, I say, there are millions of people in Tianxiang City. Why do I always meet you guys every time I come out? Is it really fate that brings us together? Or is it that enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road? As soon as he spoke, the two people outside shouted at the same time, Jun Moxie. Although the two people spoke at the same time, the emotions they wanted to express were as different as heaven and earth. Yi Guhan's voice was filled with extreme disdain and anger. As for Dugu Xiaoyi's voice, it was filled with joy. It turned out that Dugu Xiaoyi had excitedly followed Princess Raimu to the imperial palace. But after a few days, she didn't see anyone from her family coming to pick her up. It must be known that Xiaoyi was the Dugu family's most favored young lady. Seeing that there was no movement from her family for a few days, she was naturally surprised. So, she bid farewell to Princess Raimu and requested to return home. Raimu naturally tried to persuade her to stay. Although Xiaoyi was innocent, she was also exceptionally intelligent. She naturally sensed that something was wrong. After asking around, she found out that her own family had caused a ruckus at the Jun family because of her. Suddenly, her temper flared up. Regardless of the fact that it was already late at night, she clamored to leave the palace and return home. Princess Raimu had no choice but to ask Yi Guhan to escort Dugu Xiaoyi home in order to be safe. Who would have thought that Little White, who was in Dugu Xiaoyi's bosom, would suddenly come out of her bosom with a schwa sound. Then, it sniffed its nose in all directions. Then, it jumped out of the little girl's palanquin and disappeared without a trace. Dugu Xiaoyi was very anxious. So, she got out of the palanquin to look for it. When she heard Jun Moxie's voice, she immediately understood that it was him. No wonder Little White had such a big reaction. She remembered that Little White liked him very much. So, it wasn't surprising that such a situation had occurred. Jun Moxie had a helpless look on his face as he carried the little guy out of the palanquin. When Dugu Xiaoyi saw him, she thought about the ruckus between the two families during this period of time. She felt an indescribable sense of shyness. She saw Little White lying comfortably in Jun Dashao's bosom. Unexpectedly, it didn't open its eyes to look at its owner. It was as if Jun Dashao's bosom was the most comfortable place in the world. Naturally, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous. But, when she saw Jun Moxie's tired appearance, she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. For a moment, all kinds of subtle feelings welled up in her heart. She didn't know what to say. For Dugu Xiaoyi, who dared to say and do what she wanted, this was a very rare thing. Chapter 135. Ha, it's fate that brings us together. Miss Dugu, we meet again. June Moxie chuckled and said casually. His tone and expression were the same as when they first met at the 1,000 Gold Hall. However, young Master June had never expected that these words of his would carry a complicated meaning to Dugu Xiaoyi's ears, even though they weren't much different from the words he had said back then. Fate? He said that we're fated to meet. Sigh, so what if we're fated? What's the use of running into each other every day? Aren't the two great families still against it? Dugu Xiaoyi's joy when she heard June Moxie's voice turned into faint bitterness. Just like today, if it weren't for Little White, I wouldn't have been able to see you again. Are we not fated to meet again? Dugu Xiaoyi wasn't an old monster who had lived 2 lives. She was only 16 years old, the same age as Mo Xie. She was just a young and innocent girl in the prime of her life. She wasn't able to understand such subtle things as love at her age. However, she had often heard that June Mo Xie was a debauchee, and had committed many evil deeds. So, she had always felt disgusted with him. So, she would punish him whenever she encountered him. That was all. But ever since she met June Moxie outside the 1,000 Gold Hall, she felt that although this good-for-nothing was glib, the way he handled things was very organized, and he had a sense of propriety. It was as if he was a completely different person from the June Moxie she'd met before. That encounter had greatly aroused Dugu Xiaoyi's curiosity. Moreover, June Moxie had pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger, and Dugu Xiaoyi had been very satisfied with his methods. Later, when she met June Moxie again in the Book of Heavenly Weapons, and saw June Moxie acting like a pig to eat a tiger, she couldn't help but feel disgusted. But later, she realized that she had misunderstood him again. The word again immediately caused Dugu Xiaoyi's state of mind to become very subtle. I have misunderstood him for so many years. I have bullied him for so many years, but he has never defended himself. Moreover, he would always go along with me and let me bully him. If his ability was really low, then it would make sense. But he is obviously very smart. I did not expect to misunderstand him again. Dugu Xiaoyi's heart was filled with mixed feelings as she thought about this. Although June Mo Xie had used some tricks to swindle the meteoric iron from her hands, and her heart was filled with indignation, but on second thought, perhaps it was because the meteoric iron was too important that he had swindled it from her hands. Or perhaps his resourcefulness were his true colors. Why is it so difficult to see his face? Why does he have to deliberately hide himself? This was naturally Xiaoyi's conclusion after the incident. She had always been a proud and arrogant girl, but she was bullied by a person she had bullied many times before. The reason was that she had misjudged him, and he had pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger. It was inevitable that she felt especially bad. Then, she thought about how she had misunderstood him for so many years, and how she had bullied him so many times, but he didn't seem to care at all. Thinking about this, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. She went home and cried. As she cried, she recalled her experiences over the years, and the situation of the June family. She felt that June Moxie had not been easy all these years, and her heart ached faintly. As for telling her father that she had been bullied by June Moxie, it was nothing more than a little girl who had been wronged and acted like a spoiled child. Who knew that as soon as she said it, she would receive the news that June Moxie's life and death was unknown. It was as if her heart had been hit by a heavy hammer. She had misunderstood him for so many years, and she hadn't had the chance to apologize to him. Could it be that he had died just like that? Thinking about this, Dugu Xiaoyi blamed herself even more. Once a child had something on her mind, she didn't know how to hide it, and naturally, she couldn't eat anymore. After thinking about this for many days, she had slowly raised the position of Jun Moxie in her heart to a very high level. For this matter, Dugu Xiaoyi had inquired about the Jun family from her grandfather. After learning that the Jun family was in turmoil, Dugu Xiaoyi naturally found an excuse for Jun Moxie's debauchery. It turned out that the Jun family was in such a dangerous situation. It turned out that he did not hesitate to sully his reputation for the sake of the family, and endured humiliation for the sake of the family. It must have been hard on him. He is only about the same age as me, but he has endured so much. No wonder there was such a big contrast between the few times I saw him. Such a responsible man who is willing to sacrifice for the family. Then, she found out that Jun Moxie was injured in order to save the princess, and that his life and death were unknown. Such a chivalrous heart. Thus, in Dugu Xiaoyi's heart, Jun Moxie had transformed from a debauchee to a responsible young master, an elegant and chivalrous young master. Such a transformation could be said to have turned the world upside down, and the blue sea into mulberry fields. A young girl's heart, when looking at someone, would naturally think of that person's actions as noble, great, and chivalrous. Thus, when Dugu Xiaoyi was worried about Jun Moxie, she had already wishfully vindicated Jun Moxie in her heart. Later, when she suddenly heard Jun Moxie's voice in the magnificent jewel hall, the joy that came from the bottom of her heart could not be described in words. It was as if she had suddenly regained a lost treasure. Then, when her own pet Little White unexpectedly became intimate with Jun Moxie, the little girl was even happier. One must know that Little White, besides herself, did not even look at anyone else, but it was so intimate with that bad guy. What did this mean? Originally, until this time, Dugu Xiaoyi still could not figure out what kind of feelings she had for Jun Moxie. But then, when her father and brother went to cause trouble for Jun Moxie, and after understanding the whole story, Dugu Xiaoyi asked herself for the first time in her heart, did I really fall for that bad guy? Did I really fall for him? Is this how it feels to fall for someone? This kind of feeling is really, very wonderful. So these past few days, although she was angry at her family and her best sister for rashly interfering in her affairs, it was undeniable that there was a deep fear in her heart, as well as a little bit of apprehension and a little bit of shame. Although they did not meet, but later on, when she thought of Jun Moxie, she would think that she might have fallen for him. Thinking of this, her heart would thump, and her face would turn red. Looking forward to the next reunion, the feelings of a young girl were hard to fathom, like a poem, like a dream, and filled with endless fantasies. Although Dugu Xiaoyi was born into a noble family, it would not be an exaggeration to say that she was a proud daughter of the heavens, but this kind of girl's heart was no different from that of an ordinary farmer's daughter. It could be said that this inexplicable relationship had been forcefully forced out under pressure and interference from many sides. If only Princess Raimu had not made wild guesses before, if only the Dugu family had not gone to the Jun family to make a fuss, and gradually dealt with this matter, then Jun Moxie would at most be a good playmate in Dugu Xiaoyi's heart, a very interesting and reliable person. That was all. In the end, this interesting playmate would definitely become a passerby or a memory in her life as he grew older. But with so many sides involved, Dugu Xiaoyi suddenly became more and more obsessed with this matter. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that Jun Moxie was unusually hard to come by. Instead, she was trapped in a cocoon of her own making. At this moment, when she heard Jun Moxie's voice, Dugu Xiaoyi's heart immediately throbbed, as if she had done something shameful. When she saw Jun Moxie appear in front of her, for some reason, Dugu Xiaoyi did not know what she was thinking, but her face was burning. In that instant, the first thought that came into her mind was actually to turn around and run. Could it be that I and him are really fated? Oh my, this is so embarrassing. Dugu Xiaoyi covered her hot and pretty face with her hands. Jun family's little thief, you really have a good method. You have opened my eyes. For the sake of Miss Dugu, you are really unscrupulous. Yi Guhan Lenglang looked at him. Although she did not know what method June Moxie had used to make Dugu Xiaoyi's iron-winged panther so close to him, but it was undeniable that this was definitely a killer move against Dugu Xiaoyi. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a killer move. It could be said that Dugu Xiaoyi's love for Little White was obvious to all. Now that Little White was so close to June Moxie, there was no doubt that Dugu Xiaoyi would be under the threat of June Moxie at any time. This was a very dangerous situation. High-level Xian beasts would not easily have any good feelings towards outsiders other than their own masters. Although Yi Guhan did not understand the mystery behind this, and felt that it was unimaginable, he had already preconceived that June Moxie must have used some shameful method on this Xian beast cub. Otherwise, how could this be? If high-level Xian beasts are so close to a human, and such an unbearable debauchee, then Xian beasts are not so rare. What? Good method? What good method? June Moxie was somewhat depressed. Who did I provoke this time? Is there a need for all of you to be so hostile the moment you see me? In all honesty, I didn't do anything at all. It was clearly that little lecher who jumped into my arms the moment he saw me. Although I'm suave, handsome, and outstanding, these are all facts, but how could I have fallen for such a little thing? This young master is the real, honest victim, okay? June family thief, why haven't you returned the Xian beast cub to Miss Dugu? Yi Guhan was very glad that he was the one who escorted Dugu Xiaoyi. Otherwise, Dugu Xiaoyi would not have been able to escape June Moxie's trap tonight without his escort. If something unspeakable happened between the two of them, then this matter would be very serious. No, this little thief's plot must be stopped. I say. Yi Guhan, aren't you being too nosy? Just protect your princess, why are you poking your nose into other people's business? Who do you think you are? What right do you have to stick your nose into the matter between me and the little girl? June Moxie had come down to return the little Xian beast, but Yi Guhan's words had suddenly made him feel sick of it. The following words were free. Well, let me say a few words here. Regarding this chapter of Dugu Xiaoyi's problem, he didn't intend to explain it. But recently, many people have been asking this question in the book review section: why did Dugu Xiaoyi take a fancy to June Moxie? Why? This question has been asked since before the book was published. Moreover, many of the brothers were really puzzled and felt that it was a bit abrupt. There were also some people who, or perhaps it could be said that they added fuel to the fire. Slowly, this problem actually developed into a sharp weapon to attack the evil monarch. Well, it seems that I have no choice but to be long-winded. Then let's be long-winded. That's why there is this chapter, 9 Turns of a Girl's Heart. Brothers and sisters, please don't blame me. Since I've started, let's talk about another question. Many people say that this book is the same as the previous one. I'm very puzzled. Which plot in this book is exactly the same as the previous one? If similar background worlds are the same, then in our China's ancient history, it has been repeated for 5,000 years. We are looking at the story, the plot, not the background. I won't explain this question later. Friends who really like this book won't care about this. Friends who don't like this book, I will explain it again. Up until now, I have stood shoulder to shoulder with my brothers, creating the glory of the evil monarch. Everyone knows how I do things. I go to the book review and comments section every day. Moreover, I will reply to some valuable comments. When I see a familiar ID, I will feel very cordial and will welcome it. Here, I would like to thank those friends who gave me comments on this book. As long as it is a book review, it must be a book review. It is these friends who helped me perfect the evil monarch step by step. So, thank you again. However, there are some people who read this book and even read it with great interest. They can even pick out the typos in the book and read it very carefully. Yet, they keep shouting, I really can't bear to read it anymore. Whoever reads it is an idiot. Every time I see this kind of attack, I always laugh so hard that I'm about to die. Really, you guys make me so happy. It turns out that people can be so stupid. There were also some aimless attacks, some even attacking without looking at the book. I can only thank you again, because you have once again provided me with a chance to be narcissistic. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. So, I am proud. Thank you, for providing me with spiritual satisfaction and a sense of achievement. And these are things that I originally couldn't enjoy. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.